This is Rob Fnuff from the Countercharge Podcast, and you're listening to the Mantic Universe Podcast, the only podcast that has the balls to cover all their games.
Listening to the Mantic Universe podcast. I'm Chris, and as ever, I'm joined by my good friend
Clem. Hi, everybody.
Hey, we're doing it, buddy. We're doing it. And I never know how to do this. This is always super awkward. But we are absolutely honored to be joined today by Mark Zielinski. And Mark, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's a real pleasure to be here, Chris and Clem. Thank you for inviting me on.
And Mark, just so our listeners are aware, I'm sure they are already. So I've sort of referred to you previously as sort of the granddaddy of Countercharge. And I think that's probably fair to say you've been playing Kings of War since first edition.
Hey there, I'm Brian.
And I'm Rick.
From Deadzone, the podcast.
And you're listening to Mantic Universe Podcast.
For everything Mantic under the sun.
So you were one of about 10 people playing back then.
Yeah. Well, we just started playing Kings of War. So back when it started, basically just more so because fantasy was pretty, complex, and we were looking for something simple to play. And actually, the way that all got started with Countercharge actually started as Mantic Radio back in the day. So I was sitting at my daughter's horseback riding lessons. And I called my friend Andy Sherman up. He was doing the Ohio Warhammer podcast back then. And I said, Andy, I'm going to start a Kings of War podcast. Do you want to do it with me? Or, how can we work this out? And he's like, I was thinking about that too. So we kind of slapped it all together and started Mantic Radio. And we did what you guys are doing right now. And I'm glad you guys picked up the ball and ran with it. We covered all the Mantic games. And right in the beginning, and it just kind of took off from there. And then we figured out that, hey, Kings of War is really what we like out of all this. And so we converted Mantic Radio over to Countercharge, and the rest, as they say, is history. So,
nice. Mark, am I making this up? Were you also on the Secret Cabal podcast, a very popular board game podcast?
I was not on the Secret Cabal. I was on the Dice Tower podcast.
The Dice Tower, that's it.
Many 13 years, something like that. It was many years. So yeah, I started that back in 2007, maybe something like that. It was a very long time. So
that's incredible.
Yep.
Wow.
And then I was on Throat Punch Lunch on the video cast for a while too. And then life got busy, and so I kind of faded out of that. And we weren't doing the podcast anymore. Tom Vassell changed the format. So I just focused on Countercharge and did that. But yeah, if you go and you take a look at the old Throat Punch Lunch episodes, you will see that my segment started with the blaster logo for Countercharge. And that's what my segment was called back then. So it was a lot of fun. But yeah, no, I've been podcasting and doing videos for a pretty long time now. So it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it.
So this is sort of like us inviting Gordon Ramsay into our McDonald's, sort of like, well, what Clem's doing now is he's defrosting the meat patty. You're going to love it, honestly.
Well, hopefully I'm a lot nicer than Gordon Ramsay. So,
let's see how you react to your semi-raw meat. And Tom Vassell, does he just really like hats? He always seems to be wearing a hat. Yeah, he just likes hats. That's fine.
It's kind of his shtick too, everybody knows it.
Yeah, so, that's true.
You just kind of do it. It was his ties also. He's also a big tie guy.
Right.
So he's got a lot of very interesting ties. And Tom's a great guy. So
he comes across really well.
Yeah, when I get a chance to head down to Florida and stuff, I always stop by and visit the guys. I chat with them every once in a while. So, but I mean, his little empire has grown so big. I mean, they started Joe Stedman, my friend Joe, and Tom, they started their podcast in their church on PC that they had over there. They didn't even have a lot of heat back then. They were in South Korea then. So, and it's grown into the little empire it is today. Tom just bought his first house. So,
oh, amazing. Congratulations. Yeah. Fantastic. Oh, fantastic. I've forgotten the guy's name now, but I was at Spiel in Essen a few years ago, and it was one of the guys from Tom Vassal was over, and I just asked him, is it all a bit surreal, all these people queuing to see you? He was like, yeah, it's really weird. And it was, yeah, really cool. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, it could have been Eric Summer.
I think it was Eric. Yeah, I think it was Eric. Yeah. But isn't it amazing though? Because now it's just the sort of the democratization, is that a word, of all this stuff that literally everyone has a PC, everyone has a microphone, everyone can upload stuff on the internet. You know, probably 30 years ago, you probably needed a contact at a radio station or something to do all this stuff. And now it's just like any kook like me can just pick up a microphone and off you go. Fantastic.
Yeah, anybody can pick it up and do anything. Yeah, I think when we did it in the beginning, because I joined in like episode 104, somewhere around there. And yeah, there were just like 3 or 4 podcasts back then about board games. It was in its infancy back then. So
yeah, and it's just the whole thing is just exploded, isn't it? Incredible. Yeah,
it is.
I remember them saying. Sorry.
Oh, I remember them saying that, you know, there was like 250,000 podcasts or something like that at one time. And now I don't even know if they can count how many podcasts there are, you know.
Yeah. It's the same number, but it's every day. Episodes every day, probably even more. Who knows? Right?
Yeah, I got a real kick out of it. I went in and I told Alexa to play the Countercharge podcast, and it came on. That was one of the things I was working on back in the day. So getting that to do it. So now you can listen to Countercharge on your smart speaker. So
fantastic. Okay, super. So let's just talk through on the menu what we've got on the menu for today. So we're going to do, first we talk about Mantic News as we always do. Then we're going to talk about our Warpath Firefight. We're going to talk about our October campaign. If Clem and I can actually remember our October campaign, which suddenly feels like a long time ago now, we're going to talk about Deadzone, our Pannithor Kings of War stuff. We're going to talk about our slow grow Salamanders. And this month, we've got a section called Nevermind the Gollochs. Here's Pannilore. So that's our Pannilore section with a clever pun. And then we've got some listener questions. Topic of the month, and topic of the month this month is it's a love letter to Ambush, basically. So we're going to talk about Kings of War, small points games, basically. And then we'll wrap up with next month and any conclusions. And as always, I'm just very relieved I've got through the introduction.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time, right? Like we had to reschedule recording this episode a couple of times, I think, because we were sick, various things happening. So I think now we're relieved that we're finally here and doing it. So
yeah, definitely.
But we need to remember how it actually works.
Yeah, that's or doesn't in our case. And just to sort of explain to listeners, what became last month's episode, it was the Mantic Companion app episode. It was never really designed to be a full episode. It was just an opportunity came up to talk to Elliot Barrett. So we wanted to take that opportunity, but it was never going to be a sort of standalone month episode. But then life happened, as Clem said, so this got pushed back. And I think we're probably at least 3 weeks after we intended to record this. So let's see how our notes have held up in the meantime, dear listener.
Well, we made predictions about the future and they all got wrong. No.
Classic. Cool. At least we're not doing the big red book review though, Clem.
Right. Well, we could do that again.
Nothing changed. Moving on.
It's great. Get it.
Fantastic. So should we talk about Mantic News?
Of course. Go ahead.
Absolutely.
So I think for me, the big thing actually I probably want to start with is the Ambush starter sets have been announced. I haven't actually seen what's in them yet. So I think there's 6 Kings of War Ambush starter sets.
Right.
For an unbelievably good price. I suspect they're all hard plastics.
Yeah, so the thing is, basically I think for all starters, it's 4 sprues of hard plastic. And they've done a starter, I think, for basically every army that has two different sprues, because you get two sprues of one and two sprues of the other. I think the Halflings is the same sprue, but it's kind of similar idea that you get different kind of troops for it. And also ogres, you get a sprue or two sprues of the ogres and a sprues of the goblins, but they're legal in the list. And still it ended up with two different things in the box. And yeah, I mean, they're amazing value. Like they retail, like the recommended price is 40 euros, which is amazingly low as a starting point. I think it's cheaper than the standard small army. And yeah, I think they're just great, right? Like it's a great way to start because it's not a big commitment. You already get a good amount of stuff in there, but it's also great to complement an army, right? Like I'm sure if you get your first ambush sets and give it a try and like it, you might buy a second or a third one after even just to get larger units. So I think it's a really smart way to do it. The fact that they don't have any resin models in them keeps the price low. And I think it's also a really good business decision from Mantic's point of view, because when they sell any of those starter sets, they are printing money, right? Because the hard plastic sprues cost nothing to manufacture, like each one of them, or close to nothing. It's just an investment initially. And so if you can sell a lot of them, then you're just printing money. So that's great. I think it's a really, really cool thing to see coming to Kings of War.
I think someone told me it was about 5 cents per sprue. That might have changed a little bit since. But yeah, as you say, Clem, I think from from new players' point of view and players' point of view, this is amazing. From Mantic's point of view, this is incredible. So honestly, I think this is the smartest thing Mantic have done. I really think it's going to drive new players in. I think it's going to remove the barrier to entry, because Clem, you and we're lunatics, and we'll go, oh yeah, I'll just get a mega army box. It's no big deal. But of course, a lot of people don't see it like that. Whereas this ambush set, not only is it cheap, very, very reasonably priced, it feels like a smaller hobby commitment. It doesn't feel maybe like an impossible task to finish an army. And very quickly you're up and you're playing ambush, right? So I just think it's so incredibly smart. And I think it was what Kings of War Vanguard was always intending to be, to get people in, but it never really was that, right? Because there were so many caveats with that. So this is genuinely, you're starting your Kings of War journey. This is Kings of War. This isn't something else that's got the Kings of War name in the title.
I mean, funny enough, I'm pretty sure for any army, if you get one of the ambush starter and the Vanguard starter sets, like with heroes in the box, you are really set for something amazing. Because, I mean, one criticism that I've read on Fanatics and elsewhere is that, well, there's no hero in the box, right? Like, you need heroes in Kings of War, like to get in source of inspiring and so on. And I'm like, sure, but you can find heroes anywhere else you want. You might use one of the models inside those sets as a hero as proxy. And again, otherwise, it really matches really well with the Vanguard range, right, where they released tons of new hero models. So, yeah, I think it's a really exciting time to get started with Kings of War and with Mantic models.
Completely agree. And if they threw in one resin hero, it completely changes what this box is, and how Mantic are able to offer it that cheaply. So for me, it's just it just makes sense. As I think Jeremy Dubal says, it just makes sense.
So which ones are you interested in? So there's the Goblin, Forces of the Abyss, Halfling, Ogres, Rat King, and Empire of Dust. So which ones are you getting?
I've still got, so I haven't actually started on my Ogres or my Empire of Dust starter set yet. Of the one, maybe the Ogres, to build out my Ogres a little bit, or I also, funnily enough, quite fancy the Forces of the Abyss.
Those are nice sprues. I like them. I mean, I have too many of them now. Like I already have a full Forces of the Abyss Mantic army, so I don't really need that box. But yeah, they're really nice sprues. I like them. Yeah, I think might get some goblins, to be honest. I like the goblin box is pretty cool. I just got one regiment of goblins to try it out, and also to go with my my ogres army. And yeah, I like the sprues, so I think I will get a few ambush goblin starters and finally make some goblins at some point.
Nice. And it feels really cool that you could just leave it there.
Yeah.
You don't have to build towards a 2,300 point army or whatever. You could just go, yeah, that's my little goblins project done.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about you, Mark?
Well, I am very excited about these boxes, to be honest with you. And I think the only one that comes with some resin is the Ratkin box. I think they're putting a Night Terror in there, and I think he's resin. But everybody else is the hard plastics. From my standpoint, I have all of these models already, except for in the Goblin box, they're putting in the new Chariots and the Mincer Mob sprues. So that one is an absolute must-buy for me. Just picking up the Goblin sprues for that, I think is $45, and I think the Ambush starter set's $45. So, I mean, that's a pretty good deal. So,
yeah.
But I mean, in the Goblin box, you're getting 2 regiments? That's 40 guys plus the mincers. So, very exciting. The other thing that's got me excited about it is that they're doing the MDF unit bases in the box. They're not doing the individual little
that's such a
bases this time. So they're finally putting in, and I have been crying for this for years, and I've been talking to Ronnie every time I talk to him. It's like, put unit bases in the box, Ronnie, and they're finally doing that. They're going to put in instruction manual on how to assemble the models. I almost fainted. Another thing we've been asking for forever. And they're putting in a little instruction manual, like a little starter book for playing Ambush. So, I mean, these boxes are terrific. So
it's the perfect product. My goodness.
Yeah, and I agree with what you were saying. This is what Vanguard should have been. And, and we'll talk about this more in our special topic of the month. But, yeah, definitely, I'm very excited about these guys. My mind is thinking that I should get all 6 just because I need to be a stupid completist, and the fact that I want to support Small Points, Kings of War, and support Mantic. So, but I'm definitely getting the Goblin one for sure.
I mean,
you could just pick one up and just go, hey, that's a fun weekend hobby project. It's just the price point and everything. It's just like, I'll spend the weekend doing Halflings box. Why not? It's just awesome.
Absolutely. I picked up the small army boxes for a lot of these guys already, and I just picked up the starter set. So I've got the ogres, and I've got so many EOD models right now, and I'm just taking a look at that one. If there was one I would give a pass on, it's probably that one or the Abyss, because I still have a ton of models from the second Kickstarter. Tons of Abyss models. So, but it's still cool. I'm still thinking about doing it. If I can pick them up at a discount somewhere, I might just jam them all in there. Just like I said, just to support Mantic. And hey, you get Mantic points, right? So who doesn't need some free Mantic swag?
Right.
Mark, you're among friends with your kind of like, I might just buy it to support Mantic. Come on, chuck it on the pile of models to do. I'll get around to it at some point. Yeah, and I just love the fact, because Kings of War is an amazing game. It's a user-friendly game. It's a game where skill wins, not list building. All the stuff I love, we've talked about many times, and I just love the game. The hurdle has always been getting new players in, of going, okay, well, spend all this money on these massive boxes, build that, paint that, and then come back and we can play. Whereas now with Ambush plus these boxes, these two things together, it really feels like it's a legitimate thing of getting new players who aren't massive hobbyists already, right? Getting newer players in. It just feels like everything has sort of come together beautifully, and I'm so happy to see it, to be quite honest. I mean, even the multi-bases, the user instructions, these things are going to be massive for a lot of people.
Agree.
Absolutely. And one of the big things too is, did you guys see the little thread in Fanatics about preferred model count, minimum model count, and full model count?
Right. There was a whole discussion around that, right?
Right. So I'm old school. I know what MMC means for minimum model count, because I'm back from, I started in first edition. I actually have the beta rules back from before that. So back when it was on Beasts of War. So, but if you take a look at the Ogre set, and depending on who you get in there, and you do some, minimal model count stuff, they could get away with, putting together, not that many models. I mean, minimal model count is what 11 for the Goblin Regiment. And then they have 2 warrior regiments. So, I mean, that's 4 models. So you could paint 15 models and boom, you're in. I mean, for MMC. And then if you wanted to add them later or move stuff around, that would be pretty cool. But that's the way I look at it, too, is you could really lower the model commitment. And, 15 models, that's a Vanguard army right there. Just a war band. And, I mean, you're playing a 3-unit Kings of War army. So... but again, we'll talk about more of this later. But
it's something I don't think Mantic have taken enough advantage of. Actually, is the multi-basing aspect, and just what that means in terms of hobby. And it's so exciting, and it's great that you get a little piece of MDF. You can glue some sand on there. Maybe if you're fancy, you can 3D print some little walls, or you can sculpt some little walls, and you can have almost like a little mini diorama. And then
yeah, I mean,
paint those models.
I like it. It's just I'm always uninspired, or I find it always hard to find good bits to go on multi bases. Maybe that's something they could also provide one way or another. But yeah, no,
train crates are good. There's some good stuff in there.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. I don't think it's really intended for that, specifically speaking. But yeah, you get a good source of stuff in train crates.
It's Christmas, Clem. It's Christmas. That was a grumpy reaction. It's Christmas.
Speaking of terrain crate, there was like the sci-fi terrain and trees and stuff Kickstarter. Just yesterday, when we were supposed to record 3 weeks ago.
Keep that in there, Clem. We're not updating the notes.
Yeah, I think it went pretty well for them, right? Like they have over 1,000 backers and 80,000 pounds. That sounds like a pretty good amount. You got some stuff, Chris, right?
Yeah, I did. I think where I left it, because Clem and I were talking endlessly about what level we're actually going to back. So I think I went for the early bird special with the 2 boxes. I'm not that interested, to be honest, in kind of the sci-fi walls bit. So I think I'm going to get 2 of the kind of foresty kind of alien plants boxes, because I think they look really, really cool. Again, I think this is probably an example of Mantic, because I'm very confident when we get this stuff, it's going to look really good. And I feel like this is another situation where Mantic maybe haven't made it look as good as they might have, to be quite honest. I might be wrong, but that was the feeling I kind of got. And I'm really keen to do. I think they did the mats. So if there's a backer kit or something, they did really good value mats. I think they were £50 for a 6x4 mat or something like that.
Yes.
So when I get a chance to add mats, I'm definitely going to add some mats. Yeah, but I really think when we get the stuff, it's going to be really cool. And now I'll put myself on mute.
Yeah, I've done the same thing. I got the 2 crates, early bird or whatever option, and I'll probably get a mat to get along with it. I also like they've shown some terrain cutouts, like in neoprene mat shapes to show where the forest is or where your building is. And I think those are pretty neat to very quickly set up a table and play a game.
I'll definitely get some of those as well, actually, because they're so usable. And they look nice.
And I think it's a strength of the system as well, right? And of the rules, like both Firefight and for Kings of War, because I think some of those are like fields and like a more fantasy forest. So you could use them also for Kings of War, I think. Yeah, I mean, initially it was like, I'm not so. I don't even know how much stuff is in that box, right? Like, okay, I see some trees, but is that enough for like a 4x4 or what is it? And I think it's exactly what like you said. Initially, they didn't really, I think, make it very clear. Okay, this is how much stuff is actually in there. Like that's the scale of those models. And when you see on the actual table everything together, it's like, yeah, I think it's going to be a hit. And yeah, definitely. Because initially I thought maybe I just get one box of that and that'll be enough. And just to sprinkle on top of my other existing terrain. And in the end, I'm going for 2 crates because I think it's going to do like 2 full tables at least. And I think it's going to be pretty cool as well.
Yeah, definitely, buddy. And then the amount of times I've talked on the podcast about I want to be playing in Pannithor or I want to be playing in, the Warpath universe, not on random fantasy fantasy table that we see in every hobby shop. So yeah, I feel obliged to go in on this and get Mantic terrain to play in a Mantic universe. What did you think, Mark? Did you see the Kickstarter?
I did see the Kickstarter, and yeah, they did pretty well, over 1,000 backers and 85,000 pounds. So I did not jump in, more so because I've done so many Kickstarters in the past, and you know what? It's like Rob always says, if it's going to be successful, it's going to be out in the stores, and I'm going to see it. And yeah, so I wasn't really jazzed up on the trees and stuff like that. I went big on Terrain Crate 1 and 2, so I've got tons of stuff. So I feel like I've got my Mantic universe all sorted out. The mats were pretty cool, but I've got, I've been playing for so long, I've got so much stuff. So I looked at, I just didn't jump in. So
yeah, that's fair.
That'll be interesting. The thing I did like was the cutouts for the forest. So I usually do those out of foam card, and I've got a bunch of them, but I thought that those were pretty cool, and I kind of regret not doing that. If they would add like $1 pledge to jump in and let me like pick stuff off, maybe I should have jumped in. Maybe they'll do a late pledge, and I will be able to jump in. So.
Hopefully we'll also get to the store, right? Like those cutouts. I'm pretty sure, because I think for them it's also a good way to see how many people are actually interested in those. And I would bet they will be quite successful, because I'm sure everyone who actually plays the game really sees the value in those things. And I think it's a good opportunity for them to see, okay, no, people actually are buying those things, and maybe they'll expand that range as well. I hope so.
I love the idea as well of, like, if we use that as an example of like the mouse mat material forest, putting that down and then putting some actual plastic trees or whatever on top of it, because then you've got the best of both worlds. You've got the 3D terrain, it looks great, but also it's super usable, and you can take the trees off and you still know where the forest is, and super practical. So yeah, I thought it was really cool. But hey, Mark, speaking of failed or not so successful Kickstarters, I was talking to you last week or the week before about the Kings of War role-playing game Kickstarter that never was, and I was saying to myself, oh brilliant, aren't I lucky that I only backed the Hellboy role-playing game Kickstarter, which arrived. That I've got that book. Now I got an email a couple of days ago saying you're either a backer or a late backer to the Kings of War role-playing game, so I must have been a late backer to it. So no, I lost money on that too. I just didn't know.
Well, I lost a bunch of money on that. We actually had Mark Langworthy on countercharge and everything else. Nathan Arnold and I were starting a RPG show that we were going to follow. We were going all in. I mean, it was very exciting. It was very sad to see what happened. And I know he had some family problems, and I don't know what else happened. But, if you got that, go ahead and download it. I just did it this morning, actually. One of the exciting things is, if you guys have access to a 3D printer, is the STLs in there for the minis that they were going to make are there. So I think you can consider those the very first Mantic model STLs. And, you can give them a print and see how they look. I do not have a resin printer, so I can't do it. I do have an FDM printer I'm going to try to build this weekend. We're going to see how that goes, and I'll get up and running on that. But I don't know if those will print on that printer or not. But yeah, pretty interesting. There's a bunch of art in there and a bunch of unedited rules and background and stuff. So there's a few things there for you to pick through. But the STLs are kind of interesting. So.
Yeah, I think what you'll find, Mark, probably is they will print, but whether they print to a standard you're happy with will be a different question. Whether you'd be happy to put them on the table or not, we'll have to see. Depends. I mean, if it's something like an Earth Elemental or something, you might get away with it. But anything that's kind of complicated, but it'd be interesting to see. Mm.
Yeah, I think there's a halfling riding some kind of critter and a dwarf and, a half-elf archer, I think. So, it'd be kind of cool. But, if you have access to it, go ahead and download it. It's not a ton of stuff, but there are some pretty cool art pieces that are in there that you could use for backgrounds or something, and there's some interesting stuff in there. I hope someday that this comes along and it's fulfilled, because it would be very, very cool. I do have some printouts. I might even have a couple of them here in front of me of the 5th ed rules that they came out with, and a couple other things, because we were doing some play testing a little bit. And so, but it was good. It was going in a good direction. We played a couple of games online, and so we were ready for it to go. I was sorry that it completely flamed out. So
something obviously happened, as you kind of implied, Mark, right? Because I listened off the back of our chat. I was really interested, and I went and I listened to your old Countercharge episode where you had the guy from Red Scar on. I think it was called Red Scar. And he was very professional, seemed very organized, obviously knew what he was doing. This guy wasn't a chancer, was he? He really was a legitimate person. So, who knows, life happens. And I think we often forget that something must have happened in his personal life that caused him to kind of just spiral out of control or whatever, because, I don't think he was just a chancer or anything,
No. Red Scar's a legitimate company, and he's got a lot of credits to his name. So, and heck, we got him on Newbie Dice. He was around. So, I mean, he was there and active in the community, and was helping out with the lore committee and everything else like that. And then something evidently happened, and I see him pop up every once in a while, and I'll reach out to him eventually. But I'm just giving him some space right now, and we'll see what happened. But I know he was having some family problems, and I know that they had some illness and things like that going on, and the pandemic was not kind to them. So
bless him. I hope all's well anyway. Obviously this, we all wanted to get our book, but obviously some things are more important, and I think sometimes we just have to be a human being about it and say, hope all's well. Cool. Super. So so much Mantic news. Clem, Firefight tanks.
Yeah, so I think Ronnie mentioned that among tons of other stuff, right? On was that the Blackjack Legacy an episode or something like that?
I think it was on Blackjack Legacy. Yeah, he did an interview with Andy.
Right. Well, do you play Firefight, Mark? By the way, are you into sci-fi at all?
Absolutely. If I'll give you a tour of the table over there. I showed you a little earlier. I have 2 Firefight armies up on there right now. I've got 500 points of Forge Fathers done, and I am currently working on the Enforcers. They kind of got shuffled into the background for some Kings of War ambush armies, but they are there, and I know for an absolute fact that I will be getting a new Firefight $100 starter box underneath the Christmas tree on Sunday. So I know it's coming. I know it's there. So
you don't want to leave these things to chance.
No. And I'll end up wrapping it myself, we're to that point in the family thing. So, but no, I know it's coming along with some Kings of War stuff. So I'm very happy about that, but I'll save the mystery for next time we talk. So, but
I can just imagine you now.
We've got a Firefight section coming, so we'll talk then.
Oh, absolutely. I can just imagine you now unwrapping and it you being a Games Workshop battle box or something like that. No. Do you like it? Nearly. Nearly the right thing.
You bring that up, and that's actually kind of funny. I never thought it would happen, but I can't even say I'm starting to. I'm in the middle to the end of the process of my GW fix wearing off. I never thought it would happen, but I'm really not thrilled with the direction a lot of the games have gone and stuff like that. And we'll see what happens. But right now, my mind is thinking about how can I recycle these 40K armies into Firefight. So, but again, we can talk more about that later.
About 3 months, I went absolutely nuts and bought a load of GW boxes. And then it was literally, I got them and I was like, why did I do this? And I tried listening to a few podcasts and YouTube and stuff. And it's like, I don't know. There's just something about Mantic and the community that just feels, even though it's way smaller, it just feels so much nice. It's just a great place to be. And I was like, why did I waste all that money, honestly? But there we go. I think it's just a process of kicking the GW. You're going to have sort of good days and bad days. Cool.
Yeah, so basically, to get back to tanks, I think it could be interesting, right? Like to expand a little bit the armies. Like the game has been out for a year or almost. Will be when the tanks come out, I guess. And so most likely people will have already 500,000 points of models built and maybe painted. And so I guess it'll be time to expand that a little bit. And so probably larger vehicles and specific rules for them sounds like a good idea. Definitely my GCPS wants to have some tanks. I think it would be a pretty cool addition to it, or very thematic.
I forget the name of it, Clem, but the tank they're talking about, it's in the art and it's gorgeous. Honestly, it looks beautiful. I will have to do a GCPS army if they release this tank. Honestly, it's beautiful.
That's pretty cool. I mean, the other thing that I think I mentioned it already in a previous episode, but
Lancer, sorry, just to interrupt, It's called a Lancer.
I didn't realize that those models were hard plastic. They have really nice kits, like the mule, the flying stuff. I really like those vehicle kits, and so.
Oh, me too. They're they're beautifully designed.
Definitely want to see more of those. And then, rule wise, I don't know. I mean, there's space to expand a little bit in that direction. I think he mentioned that they would have special movement rules, or maybe I dreamt of this.
No, this is where he lost me a little bit. Is he was kind of talking about, oh yeah, what if your tank gets hit in the turret and it can't shoot anymore, or if it gets hit on the tracks and it can't move but it can still shoot. I'm not sure that really fits with Firefight, if I'm completely honest.
Right.
More vehicles, sure, but more complicated vehicle rules, I don't know.
I think for me, I would like to see like Kings of War like movement for like a vehicle, like a tank or something like this, because I think it is actually interesting to have some sort of a constraint for your movement, right? And then infantry really gets an advantage compared to that because they can move however they want. And tanks and similar vehicles would have obviously tank-like advantages like firepower and resilience. But maybe they would be a bit more constrained in how they move on the table. So you have to plan a little bit more ahead what you want to do with them. Or maybe infantry has a fighting chance against the tanks because they can move better. I think there could be a cool strategic layer added to the game.
What do you think? Does it make it more complicated, Clem, if you had if you're shooting into the side of the tank, -1 to hit, with a rocket launcher or something, and in the rear, -2 to hit or something? Or does that make it too complicated?
I don't know. It could work. I mean, I know bolt action vehicle rules. They're relatively simple. It's not really on the 2-hit roll. It's on the damaging roll that it matters. And I think that historically speaking, tanks were much stronger in the front, obviously. And so if you manage to hit them on the side or even worse on the rear, then your shots will penetrate the hull much better. And I think maybe some stuff like this could be interesting. Again, all I'm interested in is what does it bring to the game, right? Like, okay, a cool model. I'm sure it will be a gorgeous, hard plastic, super nice kit. So that's almost a given. And then from a rules perspective, I think there's potential. I'm curious to see how they will actually do it. But I think there is potential. To be honest, I think the main thing that the game needs now is more players. So who knows, right? Like if you bring in tanks, maybe some people will like what they see. Like, oh, that's a new wave of releases. I love this tank. I need to get myself a GCPS. I mean, we have at least one example right here. It just said that. I think it's also important that they don't make it like that you need 2,000 points to play Firefight. I don't know. Like maybe they need an ambush for Firefight so that it's very easy to get started. It's kind of how it is now, right? You get a strike force today, and boom, you have a starter army pretty much. So, yeah.
And those boxes, they're something like 750 points, we reckon. There's probably some variety, but
the strike force, yeah, that's about something like that, I think.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Clem, I loved your idea on Facebook. Maybe you can speak to it, where you compared it to Bolt Action and how they have, there's basically a slightly different mode of the game where you have more vehicles.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so. In Bolt Action, the list building is a bit different, right? Like in the rule books or the army books, you get entries for everything, for every faction that fought in World War II. But then depending on which battle you're trying to play, you get a platoon selector, and they tell you, oh, for this, like, I don't know, like North Africa battle, they didn't have this kind of tanks. They were more late war. So obviously when you build your lists, you cannot take this, this, and this, and instead you must take that, that, and that. And then you get sort of wiggle room around this. So that's one part. And so there is a platoon selector where you must have vehicles for every troop. And then you can potentially also have different scenarios with it. And I think that could be an interesting way forward as well. Give a bit more diversity also to how the game is played. Because the scenarios are nice, but I think they could be improved. We could get more scenarios for Firefight, I think. Because a lot of them, they seem sort of similar, or... I never really want to just roll a dice and pick any scenario at random from the list in Firefight like we do in Kings of War. And so I think for me, at least, that's a sign that, okay, maybe the next Clash of Kings sci-fi edition, I want to see more scenarios and maybe a special mode for vehicles and so on.
I almost feel like they deliberately steered away from the Kings of War scenarios, because the Kings of War scenarios are amazing. So if you could add in things like Control and Invade, or very similar variations on those are just amazing scenarios, right? I mean, to be honest, I might just start playing them anyway.
Yeah, I think we did in the weekend, right? Like play Invade. We can talk about that later. Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think it absolutely makes sense. Anyway, that's about it for tanks. But long story short, I'm looking forward to the future of Firefight. I think it's going to be pretty exciting to see what they have in store for us.
Yeah, definitely. And Rob Berman sort of asked the question, who's obviously no longer with Mantic anymore. He asked the question, what would everyone like to see? I mean, the game's in quite an interesting spot because, of course, because of Warpath and first edition Firefight, they already have a very full range, right?
Right.
They
absolutely.
already have. And to be honest, there's so much choice already there for all the different factions. You know, if you even just look at Forge Fathers, they have so many different options. You know, they have units where every guy has a flamethrower. You know, so I feel like I've barely started playing the game as it is, you know. I mean, of course, I'd love new factions. I'd love the Nameless to be in it. I'd love the Rebs to be in it. But I feel like, wow, there's a lot to unpick already. And to be honest, I love the game. I haven't played that much of it, but I love the game. I just want to play more of it, to be quite honest, as it is.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, absolutely true. Anyway.
And Clem, what did you do for Black Friday?
What did I do for Black Friday? I think I kept it pretty cool. I only got some more Deadzone terrain because I needed to have more painted stuff in my collection. Because, spoiler alert, I still haven't painted my Deadzone terrain. So I need to at some point. But
the world holds its breath.
Yeah. We'll see that one coming. But I mean, we... you know, I think I talked about it, like we're trying to build some terrain for the club and have a bit more permanent storage where we can play on the weekend. And so I bought some terrain specifically for that, and another guy in the group also bought some like Deadzone terrain to do for Deadzone, obviously, but also for Firefight. So that's about it.
So I did really well for Black Friday until you messaged me with a link going, oh, look how cheap this is.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So I do my classic thing of, if I spend a little bit of money, there's a really high risk I'll then spend a load of money. If I manage to not spend anything, I'm all right. But, you know, if I just get... So this Black Friday, the first thing I did was I spent €15 on what's it called? Dreadball, on a Dreadball mat, on like a mouse mat type thing. And that's pretty reasonable. And then Clem, you messaged me with links to some incredibly cheap game mats for Kings of War, for Firefight, etc. So I got 4 6x4 mats that were €34 each, I think.
Crazy good, no?
Yeah, really good value. I got a 3x3 mat and I got a 4x4 mat. So I got lots and lots of mats.
So you're becoming your own club, right? That's the plan.
Yeah, kind of. To be honest, I kind of am. I also picked up a couple of the. It's for a Song of Ice and Ice. It's a Song in Ice and Fire. We talked earlier about having little like mouse mat style forests and terrain, difficult terrain and stuff. So there's a set for a Song in Ice and Fire that's obviously going to work great for Kings of War as well. So I picked up a couple of those as well, which was a good price. I think it was like €24 for one or something to do at least a table's worth. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of what you talked about, Clem. It's it is sort of me becoming my own little club, to be honest. But it feels like, it's just, this is what I got to do to grow the community locally, right? It's just, I got to put the effort in and put my money where my mouth is as well to some extent. So I've unfortunately last weekend I was due to help run a firefight event in Wiesbaden locally, and unfortunately I just literally couldn't do it. And it's really sad as well because I had all the mats ready, I had all the terrain ready, I'd created 8 1,000 point armies of Mantic, fully painted. I think a few proxies in there, but basically all Mantic. So I had 3 Forge Fathers armies, 2 Asterion, 2 Marauders, and an Enforcers army. And it was just really sad because everything was ready to go. It's all literally sitting down in the basement, ready to go, but just literally couldn't do it. So I don't know how the event. To be honest, I haven't even asked how the event went in my absence, but I'm pretty sure it was just a couple of unpainted 40k armies. So
yeah, I mean, you'll get further occasions, right? Like I also bought a few mats, like a good sales price from my FLGS a few weeks back. Same thing for the local group, and I think someone has to just step up and kind of push things forward a little bit. And if no one else is doing it, then why not do it yourself? And then from there, well, you do have the mats, and then more people can play. And I think it just creates a nice dynamic. And so I think it's a good investment. And mats are expensive. So if you manage to get the good deal during Black Friday, like buying maybe designs that other people are not so fond of, I mean, any mat is still really nice to play on, right? Like I don't think any mat would be completely impossible to use. And also the designs you got were pretty nice from what I remember, the pictures you've shown me. So yeah, I think it's an expensive purchase, but it's a nice investment in your gaming future. So well done.
Yeah, that's it, buddy. Yeah, thanks. And now it's done. Like we've done it. You've done the same, right? We've got mats, right?
Yeah.
Tick.
Oh, I want
we've
more.
Got terrain.
I want more. My goal is to have enough for 8 Kings of War tables and Firefight. Probably don't need 8 tables right away. But yeah, I think the day that I can organize 8 tables Kings of War events anytime I want, because I have all the mats and the terrain sets and everything, will be a good day. I mean, I'm excited by this perspective, to be honest. Because hey, nice transition into the next section. I think events are really something I've been craving for, after 2 years or so in isolation, or sort of isolation. I think I kind of want to get back out there and play games with people, and also organize some events locally and have people come over to us and play with tons of people. It's always fun. And speaking of events in the news, I think some time ago already, right? The Potsdam Boys, so it's a club in West Germany, they posted their event calendar for the whole year, which to me is amazing. But I think it's they share the room with other systems and other people, so that's why they decide very long in advance when every event will happen, like which weekend is what, basically. And I think, Chris, you're going on a team tournament early January, right?
Yeah, so next month they're running a team tournament, and it's teams of 3. We don't have 3. It's me and Trent Sowersby, another American mark. But we'll get a ringer in, and we've called our team the Muppets. So
Nice.
Mantic Universe podcast, but Muppets. But yeah, so I think he's either taking his forces of nature, or if he gets it ready, is his undead. I hope he doesn't get his undead ready, because I want to take my salamanders, and I feel weird if salamanders are fighting with the undead. That just feels like a weird combination. So, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to taking my salamanders and getting them killed. Yeah. So yeah, super looking forward to that. And Clem, we've also been talking very seriously about going to Clash of Kings next year in Nottingham.
Yeah, so I mean that's another big news, right? That was announced not long ago. So Clash of Kings 23 will happen in Nottingham, September 9th and 10th. And yeah, initially, so the Clash of Kings this year in London was like, yeah, do I want to spend the money for that? And also,
it wasn't really in London either. It was the middle of nowhere, like way out, way out.
Still the area. I thought, I don't know, it wasn't that exciting after all, in a way. And so my initial thinking was like, yeah, Clash of Kings this year, yeah, it's an investment. And now that it's in Nottingham and there's like a day at Mantic HQ, like on Friday, I think they said they would do a lot of events and stuff like that. And it's kind of like a pilgrimage, right? Like if you're into miniatures and you see Nottingham, it's like, yeah, I've never been to that place and I feel like I should, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think I'm gonna book a flight and hotel room and everything, and just go and see how things are.
And just to make it perfect, friend of the pod Steve Hildrew is running it.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that's also, I think I trust Steve to be enough of a fanatic and in love with this game enough to really make an amazing event. I think also he probably sees that as a challenge, right? Like to make it the best Clash of Kings ever. I think he takes it very seriously, and so yeah, I'm curious to see how it's gonna do. But yeah, I'm definitely going.
I think you're right. I think it's going to tickle his competitive nature, and I think he's going to do an amazing job. But I would say if he doesn't, and it's a total disaster, you know, imagine the fun we can have making fun of him. So
absolutely,
it's win-win. It's just ideal.
It would be even better if it's a complete failure and a mess, right?
Can't wait.
We can tease him forever. No,
the maps are all in Scotland.
We're not like that. We'd be happy to see everyone and so on.
Okay, this Mars bar, that's difficult terrain.
It should be better than that.
Oh, you want a bathroom? You want a bathroom? Well, there are trees around the building.
Yeah, it's just past those dangerous-looking kids smoking weed. No problem.
You think it's weed, but it's something else. Anyway, no, I think it's gonna be a cool experience. I don't know what army I'm gonna take there though. Maybe my salamanders, but I need to. Well, I'll talk about them later. I'm not sure it's an army that will travel so well, to be honest, because there's always kind of the question, like you need to fly with that army.
For me, it's either going to be salamanders or naughty elves.
Yeah, so naughty elves are definitely another option. The issue, though, is if they come out in spring, time to assemble and paint everything and then play at least a couple of games before the event. Because I think you kind of want to know a little bit your army, or
I mean, theoretically, Clem. I mean, you know, if you're looking to win the tournament, sure.
No, not just that. You know, like not realize game 3. Oops, that's why something feels wrong. Is because my list actually doesn't work the way I want it to.
I forgot to bring anything with inspiring. Yeah.
You know, like yeah. I think it's. When we went to Clash of Kings in Cardiff, like I took my Abyssals, which I played quite a few dozens of time before, and in a few games, I think I really had the impression, because I have more experience with this army, I'm not a better player, but I'm still winning because I have more experience with that army, or I can do better in the game for that reason. But I don't know. I mean, bringing an entirely new army is also an exciting challenge. Who knows?
Mark, how competitive are you when it comes to Kings of War?
Huh?
Well, I'm not super competitive. I like to go and have fun. I go to a couple of tournaments. At least I did pre-pandemic. I love going to Lone Wolf. Lots of fun. I don't like to play at Adepticon because there's so much other stuff going on. So, but I'm probably going to play this year. So we'll have to see. We're thinking about doing the team tournament, but it's like 11 hours or something like that. It's like all day Thursday. Boy, that's just a tough commitment for me to a convention. But
Right.
And Colin and I play in team tournaments. We've flown down for Living Legends and things like that. So I love going. It's just a matter of getting time to go. And speaking of going, I am seriously looking at Clash of Kings 2023 in Nottingham. Already talking to my wife. As a matter of fact, that is a conversation we are having after this podcast is recorded. So
Oh my
Nice.
goodness.
we're going to be chatting about it very heavily. She wants to go to Ireland, and so we keep finding ways to go. And we were supposed to go visit in 2020. We were supposed to go in May of 2020, and obviously we all know what happened that made that trip not come together. So we're working on it very heavily. So it's been discussed, and we'll talk more about it. But we're working on it. It's been discussed in the family. It's roughly on the calendar. I'm trying to make it work at work right now. So that's the big thing, trying to get the time off so I can go. But yeah, the fact, like you guys said, it's in Nottingham. Boy, I've always wanted to go to Warhammer World, and I wanted to go to Warlord and Mantic headquarters, and go see the old bars and the castle and all that.
Kevin Costner and Alan Rickman, Brian Adams doing the soundtrack. Come on.
Oh man, I'm ready.
Oh boy.
So, yeah, if I can pull it off, we're gonna pull it off. So I am, like I said, it's the discussion. My wife and I are gonna be talking about it later today as we're sitting around, just kind of planning out 2023 and all the travel. So far I got Adepticon on there, Origins, working on sliding this one in, and I'll probably have to take the bullet and go to Disney. But
that's super exciting. Oh, that's
It would be
amazing. Right,
amazing.
we'll have to take that conversation offline. Yeah, I think it really would be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Clem and I went to Cardiff a couple of years ago for Clash of Kings, and I think it was John Green Jr. was there from the US.
Right.
And as I understood it, basically his wife and his son bought him a ticket to Clash of Kings for his Christmas present,
Wow.
mistakenly buying him the UK one, not the US one. So they leveraged it into a family holiday. And he said he'd always wanted, since he was a boy, he's always wanted to run into Loch Ness. So while he was here, they went up to Scotland, and it was in November, I'm going to say. The weather is not good in Scotland in November. Yeah, it was October, November. And he ran into Loch Ness, and he just seemed like the nicest man. And it was just, that's exciting. That's really exciting. Cool.
Yeah, actually, I played John at Living Legends. Colin and I had a game with him, and I never played him at Lone Wolf or so, but I love flying down to Texas. That's one of my favorite scenes to go and play Kings of War. I love going down there.
I think it's quite competitive. They're competitive, aren't they, in Texas?
It's competitive, but the fun part is going down for dinner and drinks and, the after games on Saturday night, and, going to Jeff Swan's house and hanging out and playing board games all night. And then you're playing during the day, and Len and Roy's running around buying everybody beer. And it's just, I just love going. And pre-pandemic, I used to be able to just me in a backpack fly down for $200. Can't do that anymore. It's probably $600 now, but I don't know. There's just something about playing Kings of War down in Texas. For me, that's almost as much of a pilgrimage as it is to Adepticon. So, going down and seeing the guys. I do miss the Beer Phase podcast quite a bit. That was one of my favorites. And so I'm hoping the guys are well. And, I'm hoping to get down this year. If you noticed, it was not on the travel list. It's there kind of in pencil. I'm hoping to pull it off. If I do, it's a Friday night and fly out Sunday, in and out kind of deal. But I'm hoping to make that one. Yeah, that's something.
You made an interesting point, Mark. I find that really interesting that people will go to a massive con like Adepticon and then spend all day playing a game. And it's like, well, why go to the con? You could have done that any other time. You could have played the tournament anywhere, really. Like, I'd rather just go and experience the convention,
Right. Oh, exactly. And I mean, that's why I don't play at Origins either. So, I'm always down there with my family. And there's just so many other things going on. I mean, at Origins, there's 15,000 events or something going on. I mean, you can't possibly do it all. And there's a giant vendor hall. It's like, yeah, I can play Kings of War another time, but I would love to support it for Mike Carter. And, I'll go play in the 2-hour events at the Ohio War Kings booth. But, playing in a 6-hour 8-hour, 9-hour tournament, I don't like doing that. My rule at Origins is if it's over 2 hours, I'm not playing in it. So
makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, I was hoping we were going to get Clocks of War on Friday night. I talked to Mike Carter about it last year. Unfortunately / fortunately, the Firefight tournament is going to be then. So I'm seriously looking at that too. So that sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm going to bend this year. I'm going to play in more tournaments or play in a tournament or something this year. That it's going to happen. I just got to figure out. I would love to do the team tournament, the Firefight tournament, and the Adepta Clash. Not going to happen, but I would leave myself 8 minutes to enjoy the convention. But
yeah, exactly. Mark, do you know how many points the Firefight tournament will be?
I don't off the top of my head. I'm thinking it's going to be 1,500 points, but I'm not positive about that. I did listen to the episode on Countercharge when Pat Lewis was on, Community Pat, going over everything. I can't remember if they mentioned the points level or not for that, but I'm thinking it's going to be 1,500 points. I haven't played that many yet, so we'll see. But I play for fun. I roll up and have a good time, and I know there's no way I'm going to win. If I won Countercharger, I'd be happy, but, coming in last place, usual, somewhere in the bottom, I'm just there to have fun, see everybody, and chat and just have a good time. So if I win, it's a bonus. I'm like the Chicago Cubs of War Gamers. So, if they happen to win the ball game when you go, great, it's a bonus. So, but, I think my, highest placing in a Kings of War tournament, I came in 3rd at the Clash of Kings in 2014.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Well, there's only 10 players, but it was still an accomplishment for me. So
it's better than any of us, right? Like, I don't think I've ranked any like that high in any events. Chris, I don't know about you, but yeah, it's not the main thing.
You do know about me, buddy. You do know. Of course I haven't.
I wanted to be not too French and a bit more polite. So, but yeah, that's not why we go to events either, right? Like, of course, you get good games in, and it's a nice adventure, nice experience.
If I suddenly started taking the results seriously, I'd have to have a serious word with myself of like, what's wrong with it? What am I? It's great. Other people get a lot of satisfaction from winning games. Like, to me, it's just fun time with another human being. All that matters is we have a good time. Like the arbitrary, did I win or lose?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think absolutely true. All right.
Cool. Right. How grumpy are we all feeling? So the Mantic Companion app. So I think they made a little change to the way it prints. I'm going to keep banging on about the printing for Kings of War, right? So the list is printed a bit nicer. Yeah. And
significantly nicer.
So there's all these fancy options with the Mantic Companion app. I'll be honest, they're nice to have. I'm not really that bothered. I just want to be able to print my lists really easily. I know it's, that's horribly old-fashioned, but that's really all I want from a list builder. The rules to be, everything to be correct, and I can print it easily.
Yeah.
So that's good as far as I'm concerned.
That's step one at least, and I was quite grumpy so far, but the latest, I don't know how long ago it was updated, but the latest version I think is pretty much what I wanted to see, and so it's great. I'm happy to see it for Kings of War. I think the Firefight lists can be improved slightly. but I'm sure it will come in due time. And so I'm happy to see it move in the right direction. So yeah, that's
Just
pretty
pay your €60, Clem, and you'll get
pounds.
it.
Pounds.
Is it pounds? Oh, is it pounds? All right.
I think it's pounds.
That's so good. Oh, that's all right then. That's only about €6 now anyway. That's fine.
The difference, right?
Yeah, that's the Liz Truss difference. Absolutely. And Mark, sorry, go for it, buddy.
Isn't it like 60 in whatever currency you have, or something like that?
We need to be doing it in rupees or something like that. That's the way to go.
Right.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
How's the Turkish lira doing these days? Yeah.
That would be nice.
Did you have a question for me, Chris?
Yeah. How are you using the Mantic Companion app? How are you finding it?
I am. As a matter of fact, I printed out a couple of lists this morning. So I'm on a little tear here, building 500-point lists and painting them up. So have you guys had, I noticed that the earlier lists I was printing out, the magic artifacts weren't printing out. Now they are. And also I'm getting 2 different headers on the top. So it looks really weird. I don't know if today's came out that way, but I was getting this really weird print. It was like really sterile, like something I was printing at work. And then all of a sudden I started getting a fancier top on them. So it was interesting. So
this is why we need the changelog, I think, so we can see. Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I haven't double checked recently. Yeah.
Yeah, because some of the prints turned out a little different. Yeah, see, like this one I printed doesn't have the magic artifacts on the bottom. Oh, because they don't have one. That makes much more sense.
That might be a reason for it.
Exactly. So
no, it's still a mistake, Mark. Let's double down on this. No, we're still appalled.
Oh no, here you go. This is one here. I don't know if they come in different prints or not, but yeah, like this one, it didn't come out with the artifacts on it. It stopped at the end of the special rules. So it's so. Yeah, because I did one that's called Trolls of War. It's my 500 points. It's 3 regiments of trolls and a troll bruiser. So, and between when I originally designed the list and now, it's 45 points cheaper roughly. So I get to throw in some magic artifacts, and so hopefully they'll get that done. But I'm done. I'm kind of losing my GW bug, as we kind of talked a little bit about earlier offline, and so I'm going to cut out Warhammer TV, and I'm going to pick up the Mantic app. They just need to do a figure for us, and I figure I'm getting value, so same for same, because it costs the same. So I'll just toss all in on Mantic, and there you go.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, like give some sort of exclusive stuff for it. Why not?
I think Warhammer TV, if you pay for a year, something like that, you can pick one of 2 models, right?
Right.
It's a really cool idea. I don't care for the sculpts, but yeah, it's a great idea. Just a lovely little reward. Yeah, absolutely. Particularly with the subscription service, where you're paying for a service rather than the physical thing, because we're old. Yeah, fantastic.
Right. Well, and the neat thing about that too, that might work in Mantic's favor, is when you go to pick up that figure, you have to go to the store and add it in your cart, and they give you the chance to buy whatever you want for free shipping. So it's a nice little perk. So, maybe Mantic could do like a little model, a little Ronnie model or something like that. And then say, hey, at the end of the year, if you make it for your whole year, here you go. You get your Ronnie model, and, whatever you throw in the cart, free shipping. So, I think that would be kind of cool. So
sounds like a sound business decision. Yep. Well, I support it. I would fall for that, definitely.
Fantastic. Cool. Right, should we move on to our Warpath Firefight?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've done more than an hour in the news, so it's about right. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on, right, since the last recording. So, but yeah, Firefight. Let's go.
Yeah. So, Mark, you're dipping a toe in, more than a toe by the sound of it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I started playing Firefight right out of the gate in the older first edition when Alessio did it, and it was basically sci-fi Kings of War. I still really like that edition. I've picked up every edition since. I have a lot of Firefight down here in the basement, so just a matter of it competing with Kings of War for my time and getting on the table. Colin and I are scheduled to play another Firefight game this weekend, so we'll see how it goes. I actually dragged him out of retirement. We'll talk about that later on Kings of War, but Firefight, we have gotten in a couple of games, so using the unpainted minis and things like that. I'm trying to get him to pick a force and kind of go with it. He hasn't done that yet, so he's been using the enforcers that are like sort of painted right now. Hopefully I'll get those knocked out sooner rather than later, but my Forge Fathers are fine. I love small points, so we're playing 500 points, and whether it's balanced or not, I don't care. It's just a matter of getting it to grips with the rules a little bit and things like that. So, but yeah, very, very cool. We talked about tanks a little bit earlier, so I do really like the Forge Fathers tank. So it's really cool. I love the way that the turret comes with all the different options. It's 3 different turrets, so you can swap it on and off. So I really like that value and things like that. So there's a lot to like about it. And the other thing too is I was excited for 9th edition Warhammer to come out, and it just fell flat on its face after it just started getting overcomplicated again and stuff like that. So as I mentioned before, I'd love to find a way, and I don't know if everybody's picked up this project or not, kind of like Uncharted Empires, we can call it Uncharted Planets or Uncharted Regions or something, and, convert all the armies over to Firefight so we can get some people to dip their toes in. But I think they regret doing that with Kings of War, so they probably won't do it with Firefight. But I think it would be helpful if there were at least some unofficial list banging around that you could use. So
that's a good point. I mean, I think the risk is what you want is that people's first Firefight army might be an import from somewhere else, but the second army should be a Mantic army. I think that's the difficult transition to make. I don't know. I mean, we've talked about it in previous episodes. Personally, I'm kind of done trying to convert 40k players to anything Mantic, because really 40k is a lot of a lifestyle game, right? Like, it takes so much energy that you can do this and nothing else. And that's what a lot of 40k players that I know are doing. So sure, I think it sounds like a good hobby project, like to make lists for an army that you already have and try to bring it into Firefight. Obviously, for some armies you could proxy potentially, but yeah, I don't know.
Personally, I just prefer the idea of, and particularly, Mark, if you're playing 500-point games or 750-point games, I think the Firefight starter force boxes are so reasonable. I mean, I picked up the Veer Moon one for about €80, so about $85. I think it's such a reasonable amount of money. I just prefer the idea of just getting it ready, and then showing people 2 Mantic armies, rather than, okay, well, that's a 40k Eldar army or whatever, Craft World it's called now, and that's Mantic armies. For me, the money and everything, I just like the idea of having 2 Mantic armies on the table.
Oh, I totally agree. And I think those boxes are a great value, and I really honestly want to pick them all up. I just don't have enough life to be able to get that all done, but I really do. I want to do absolutely very badly. I just got to find a way to paint faster, I guess, or do something like that. I keep working on various speed paint changes and things like that. So, but if I ever get a chance to get the airbrush up and running or something like that, maybe that would help. But yeah, I've got too much hobby and too much work time. So I got to flip that somehow someday, so it'll switch. But
keep saying that it'll switch.
I think that's a good point also for like the Firefight models, because I think they're really nicely designed. Like, the first time I saw them on the website, like with the old pictures, I was like, not sure I really like the design or something. But when you actually get the models in your hands, they're actually really nice kits. And I really have good memories from painting my Plague and GCPS, because I think that the right amount of details on the model, so that it's not boring to paint them, or like they look good once they're painted. But it's also not too crazy, or like, is that a pouch? Is that the pants? Is that a belt? Like, what color? It's always my own issue with it. But from painting the Plague and GCPS, I think they're really the perfect balance of level of detail, like for a good gaming piece that is also convenient and nice to paint fast. Like it's
not horribly overly designed.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not the latest, highest technology model like you could find for the latest GW releases. But like I don't want to have any infantry like in 12 pieces with spikes everywhere or like flying capes or weird parts that like super complex that will break when I transport them or play with them. It also takes a lot of energy to paint. And I think in that regard, the Firefight models are really a good compromise and they're really good gaming tokens in a way.
And to your point, Clem, as well, they take a contrast paint really well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like they love contrast paint. Yeah.
Really work well on those models. Like my GCPS, like 750 points, I think I painted in 3 evenings, right? Okay, GCPS maybe is the easiest one because it's like army green and a bit of black for the boots and the gun, and okay, you're done, sort of. But even the plague, it's not that much more effort, and they look great in the end. So I think they really are. They give more options for speed painting.
Can you guys explain to me why I find Enforcers the hardest to paint? Because they're just dudes in armor, and that should be the easiest. And I don't know what it is, but I've spent by far the longest amount of time on my Enforcers, and I'm by some distance the least happy with them. It's just dudes in armor. What am I doing wrong?
I think it's pretty hard to be neat when you paint armor. Also, I think the box art, isn't it a white armor? Didn't you choose to do a white armor?
Yeah, I've done white armor.
White is one of the worst color to paint. Like, really, I would choose yellow any day over white, and I hate painting yellow.
I've done white with yellow.
Yeah. Well, if you're a masochist, I can't do anything.
Yeah, I was going to say glutton for punishment, but the same
right.
But no, it's been a real struggle. I've got 1,000 points ready, and I've stayed away from the peacekeeper armor, like the big guys, because I kind of wanted to do. I've kind of got this idea in my head for a bit of a story or like a little story narrative campaign. And I've got this idea of like a kind of very sneaky Pathfinder. They're kind of like the scouts who've been out there a really long time. So, they've got the enforcer bomber thing, but they, and they've also got one strider. But everything else is just like really fast, sneaky guys with sniper rifles. They don't have these guys. They don't have the heavy infantry type. So yeah, but it's cool. I'm glad it's done, but I'm kind of not that happy with how it looks, to be honest. And it was kind of, I paint them white and you're like, okay, well that just looks like I didn't finish it. It looks like I've just primed it and that's it. So okay, right, let's put some null oil on there or something. Oh, well that looks terrible. What now? And it's okay, I'm going to paint them white again. Okay, well now they're just going in circles.
Very hard to paint. White is awful. The only thing that works is kind of off-white, like or beige, or like maybe very bright blue, or like give it bluish tint, depending on what your accent color is next to the white. But white itself it's like black armor is pretty hard to paint, I think, because how do you do the highlights? It's not so obvious at all when you have a black armor, and if you don't do highlights on miniatures, like nothing at all, it just looks kind of flat and kind of weird. Like there's a reason why highlighting and stuff to help you do that is a thing in miniature painting, is the scale of it, and how the miniatures are built. Without any highlights, it's just too flat and it doesn't work at all. And it's even a thing, like with even smaller miniatures, you want even more contrast. Like, with the 10mm stuff, you want even brighter colors, even more contrast, and highlights and so on. And so white and black are very hard for this reason, for sure. I wouldn't do that. But hey, your choice. You're allowed to make bad decisions.
Yeah, well, you'll hate my minis. You'll hate my minis, Clem. I don't highlight that much, but I let the contrast and the, I do a little dry brush contrast and
that's
things
enough,
like that.
Yeah, but that's what I do as well. No, what I'm saying is, if you use like a base color, like the old school, flat opaque paint, and you just paint with this and nothing else, it kind of looks kind of weird, I think. Or
it doesn't matter how you do it, but you need to do something on top of that, right?
Yeah, no,
Doesn't
the
matter
thing
how
is,
you get there, but do something.
It's interesting because I was thinking about this because I did a hobby demo last weekend or the weekend before, I don't remember. I was someone completely new to the hobby who got super interested in Firefight at a demo game that I did a week earlier, and so he bought a starter, is getting in forces and everything, and he was like, yeah, but I've never done any models or anything. Like he's like a D&D dungeon master, so he knows a lot about the universe and how games work in a way, but the whole painting and gluing models together, he had no idea. And so, he came over and we assembled a marauder, and I've painted a zombie for him, like to show him how it works. And I realized, if you don't do anything to highlight the model, it looks a bit weird. And also, technically speaking, when you look at a tiny model, like the highlight are really exaggerated versions, right? Like it looks really weird when you focus on, okay, what do I have in front of me? Like the edge highlighting, for example, is really weird, when you really focus on what that is. But it makes the model pop a little bit more, and it actually looks better with it than without it. So anyway, I think it's a good advantage of the Firefight models that they really take a good like not too much effort to get to a good level with contrast paints as well, or some dry brushing, and boom, you get a great result.
Yeah, that's a good point there, Clem. Is edge highlighting, if you think about it, that's not something that happens in the real world. The edges of things are not always lighter than the rest of it, but it looks cool on a mini.
Yeah, absolutely. It creates a weird illusion. I don't know exactly what's going on there, but for sure it does something to the miniature and shows the details a bit better. And I'm not saying you must edge highlight every model. I definitely don't. But it does bring something to the table.
Nice. Cool. So what have I actually done? So unfortunately, I wasn't able to do the Wiesbaden event. I am going to be running an event. I haven't confirmed the date yet, but early next year, when possible, I'm going to be running hopefully a sort of 4 or 6 person Firefight event at the local shop, which is called Yoda's Data in Idstein. It's a lovely local shop. It used to be a cinema, and it's a great little shop with a load of gaming tables. So I feel like I should give that a little shout out. So I'm super looking forward to getting the lovely mats I've got from Black Friday on the tables, getting some Mantic terrain on them, and just showing some people that great game. What else? Oh, I did some. Just goes to show how long since we recorded last. I had a go at doing oil washes on the Firefight terrain. It looks a bit better than it did before, I think. It was fun. Doing oil washes is actually a fun little experiment. You need to use turpentine or white spirits, which is not the nicest of stuff, because you can't just mix it with water as you do with acrylic paints. But it was cool. It was fun to do. Once you've actually kind of mixed things nicely, it's really easy and really satisfying to do. It's quite smelly, and you have to make sure you dispose of the leftovers safely. So the way I've kind of got around that is just making tiny quantities of paint and mixing tiny amounts at a time so that there isn't anything left over after every session. But I imagine it's not for everyone, but I've really enjoyed doing it. I just got a cheap set of oil paints from Amazon. I got a load of different colors, got some turpentine. And then basically what I did is I just get a cheap plastic tub. In the 4 corners, I put 4 different colors, just a tiny bit of each. And then in the middle, I put a little bit of like a little lake of turpentine. And then I just mix it in. And what you very quickly end up with is just like one big one swimming pool of kind of brownish paint, which is actually really, really good for doing washes. So, I've kind of enjoyed doing that. It's something I always wanted to do. You have to be careful. I mean, the brush you use will just be destroyed. This stuff does not love brushes, but it's cool. It was a fun little project to do. I'm not sure how often I'll do it going forward, to be honest.
Yeah, do you think it's worth the effort, like the whole setup and everything? Also the stinky smell, and I guess probably toxic or something like that. I don't know.
Going forward, probably, to be honest, I'll use my homemade wash.
Right.
acrylic wash, to be
Yeah.
honest. But I'm glad I did it. It was
It's
kind
an
of cool.
experiment. Yeah, it's an experiment, I guess. Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, going forward, I'll just use my homemade acrylic wash with medium and stuff.
Yeah.
So, Clem, how much do we remember about our October Firefight campaign?
Whew, not much, to be honest. I remember it was a lot of fun. I remember, like Manuel in our chat saying, talking about the food that we ate. That was also a big highlight of the weekend, the good food. But yeah, I mean, it was a pretty cool experiment. I think the universe really is a good background to do more narrative gaming. For some reason, I don't know, like I can't come up with any ideas with Kings of War, like the lore. I don't really master it so well yet, I guess. But for Firefight, in a way, it's like if I want to find an excuse for those two factions fight, boom, I come up with something I'm happy with. And that's basically what happened for the weekend, right? Like I wrote basic stories for each factions, created small secret objectives for everyone, and yeah, I think it went quite well. I mean, I think we had the main good ingredients of a good gaming event. There's nice people, nice food, like a nice social meetup first and foremost, and yeah, I think having the story for our games just gave it a little bit more taste, and I think that pushed it over the edge for me, and I was super happy with it. Yeah, I think the things that could go better, obviously, we weren't so great about timekeeping. I think that's always kind of a trade-off. I see it also when we do gaming days locally here in Berlin, because if you really want to fit 3 games in a day, like 3 Kings of War games in a day, or 3 big Firefight games in a day, you kind of need to get going. Like you kind of need to say, okay, this is the morning, we played a game. Okay, now this is early afternoon, we need to play game number 2, and then switch to game 3 afterward. Like if you don't
I think you're right, Clem. Sorry, just to your point, I feel like you need to get the first game under your belt pretty early. Just get one game done, boom, and then you can move on from there. Whereas if you don't get started kind of, fairly punctually, I think it makes it challenging sometimes.
Yeah, but I think it's not like there's a right or a wrong way to do it. Like initially I was a bit pissed off at local people here, when you organize a gaming day, and they show up at 2 p.m. and they play one game and maybe a second, but probably not. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, it's gaming day. Like, you should come up at 9 a.m. and play. But I also end up realizing, well, maybe it's also completely fine to just have a lazy morning and come around at 1 p.m. and look around and chit-chat, and then slowly set up your game and then play one game, and that's enough. And then chit-chat some more afterward and look around at the other games. And sure, you play less, but is it the worst, like a worse event? I'm not so sure. And so in the end, for our weekend, initially I had plans for one game of Firefight in the morning, then one game of Deadzone, and a game of Firefight late afternoon. And we ended up skipping the Deadzone game because the Firefight game didn't happen in the morning at all, right? Like we did it early afternoon, if I remember correctly. But that's also completely fine, right? Like it was also like a weekend to have a good time, not a weekend to play as much as we can.
Yeah, and it was definitely the right decision. And, bear in mind, all we wanted to get out of it was just having a good time, right? So just realizing we're going to have to cut our losses on the Deadzone game. No worries. Hey, it happens. That was just the right decision, because we were playing until something ridiculous like 3:30 in the morning just for fun, right? Just because we could. Yeah,
but because we played the like Kings of War also like on the side and so on. Yeah, all I'm saying is if you kind of make plans. Okay, this is the scenario. This is what we're gonna play, and there's kind of a rhythm attached to it. Then you kind of must enforce it, or have the scenario and the stuff flexible enough so that you can basically adjust it on the fly and maybe skip a game or skip some parts of it. I think it also made me think. It's an interesting aspect, I think, for organizing also narrative events, or maybe not tournaments and competitive gaming events, because I think a lot of people see, okay, this is a tournament, I'm not a competitive player, I don't want to go. Or like, hey, this is an event that starts at 9 a.m. on a Saturday. Well, on a Saturday at 9 a.m. I'm still sleeping, or I need to go fill the fridge, or run some errands and something like this. I don't have the full day to just do that. And so,
but is it, Clem? Is it? Sorry to
no, go,
off, buddy. So is it just? Surely it's just a question of everyone being honest and communicating properly up front and saying, "Hey, I don't want to play all day. I'm just going to come later. Is that okay?" And do my own thing, and then just be a bit of a cat, turn up, so that then everyone can be happy, right? So the people that want to turn up only, like us, who want to play all day and kind of feel like we want to get the most out of it, quote unquote, the most, then we can do our own thing. And the other people, we're not waiting on anyone. It's not like, okay, we have to wait till Dave gets here, otherwise we can't start, because that mismatch could create bad feeling, right? Whereas if we're all honest about our expectations at the beginning, it's cool. Oh, Dave's here, that's cool, but he's not impacting our enjoyment on the game or our enjoyment of the day, or
I think plans. For me, it just made me realize, or like think more about, how do I want to organize events? Because obviously I want to play more games with more people, and I want to bring in non-competitive people to tournaments and to gaming days. Like I very carefully call them gaming days when we do that locally. And I think that like the not asking too much, like, hey, show up at 9 a.m. is one part of it, and it's completely valid. On the other hand, like if Clash of Kings says, hey, you know what, well, maybe we'll play at 2 p.m. and so on. And like, dude, I took a plane to come here. I'm staying in an hotel room tonight. Like, obviously, I want to play from the moment I wake up to the moment I'm too tired to do it anymore. So that's kind of a different context, maybe. And again, as you said, it's just about managing expectations and then realizing, okay, what is it that you're trying to do, and then adjust according to this. The other stuff, the other two things that I would do differently for the next one is how to keep track of the secret missions and maybe build more interesting secret missions. It's always very tricky to have, linked scenarios. Like if you win that scenario, then you gain something for the next one, because it's very hard to balance or to keep it interesting for everyone involved. So I don't want to do that in general.
And we don't want to have gotchas either. We don't want to have, aha, well, I did this, and therefore there's no way you possibly could have known, but here's a gotcha moment.
Yes. So I think the way I've done it for the gaming day works quite well, where you do a series of games earlier and you kind of keep track of, let's say, victory points or like special objectives and so on. And then for the last game, or maybe at the end, then you can do a scoreboard and say, this faction managed to achieve this objective because blah, blah, blah. And you tell a story out of it. But don't mess too much with the balance of the game, because at the end of the day, I think you still want to play interesting games. And I think, if you mess too much with the rules or how the scenario is made and so on, it can turn into something a bit not so pleasant to play, or like not as enjoyable. So that's the one big thing, like figure out how to craft this part. The second one is maybe beforehand, from both the organizer side and the participant side, think more about what lists are coming, and maybe tailor the scenarios or the list building a bit more to, okay, what's going on here? Like, okay, the scenario says, or the narrative of the mission says, it's like a vanguard from this faction on this remote planet. So obviously they shouldn't have this type of troops, and more that other type of troops. So on the list building side, I think there could be some guidance beforehand, or maybe some constraints, right? Like, because that could make cool stories. Like, you can't bring any vehicles, and because whatever, or the opposite, that you must bring vehicles for like at least 50% of your troops must be inside a vehicle, or stuff like this.
So I was kind of thinking that, Clem. So for the next campaign, and just jumping ahead a little bit, for the next campaign, so I've taken I've called it The Remains of a Forged Star. So I think it's actually the Deadzone book, in the fluff there's a story called The Fate of a Forged Star. I think this is a cool story that isn't particularly well told, if I'm honest. So there's aspects of this that I'm really interested in. So basically, this is me kind of reworking this story. So I'm basing it 3 years after these events, but it's very much, a continuation, as it were, of these events. So, obviously the Forge Fathers are not going to be happy they've lost a Forge Star. How would they react to that, etc., etc. So and part of the reason I've just bought the Viet Minh box. So I'm just kind of taking what's there and changing it slightly. If you're fighting on a Forge Star, I can't imagine that there's going to be tanks. I could maybe imagine Striders, but I can't imagine, okay, let's drive our tanks onto the massive space station. Don't know. Maybe,
or
but
flyers.
maybe not.
Yeah, flyers or stuff like this could be weird. Yeah, absolutely. So,
and you could do as well, atmospheric conditions. This turn maybe you could have even cards or something, and you roll a dice, or a table, roll a dice, and there's like atmospheric conditions, and maybe if you're in an APC, you're safe. But then we go back to that. Okay, well, that could massively skew the game, and obviously list building would be super, super important, because if you've got an all infantry list, so that could again be bad feelings. So the more kind of wacky you go with it, the more I think you have to be really mindful to make sure that both players are going to have a fun experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it also is you need to anticipate it a little bit. Like a lot of the scenario stuff and the special elements I did on my own, kind of in a rush, just a few days before the gaming event itself. I think if it had been prepared a bit longer in advance and more shared with the participants, then maybe there could be a bit more positive feedback, or people would adjust their lists because they know a bit more what they're going to, that kind of stuff. But yeah, let's see for the next event. I'm looking forward to it.
Mark, as a man with a beautiful voice, would you mind just doing a little bit of reading out of Clem's campaign, Business as Usual on Gora?
What do you want me to read?
This is not something we've talked about ahead of time.
That's all right.
So if you go to the point in the notes.
Oh yeah.
There is a link, October 22 Warpath campaign weekend. If you click on that, and it says Business as Usual on Gora, Firefight and Deadzone narrative campaign.
I see it. Yep.
And yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot of writing. Maybe if you just read out the place with your beautiful voice.
The place. 3, 2, 1. Let us go to the planet Gora, a fringe world close to the Death Arc. It is relatively inhospitable. I'm going to start over.
Sorry, one part is also it's written by me and I'm not a native speaker, so feel free to just move words around and don't read it too closely. Just you know what I mean. I'm aware I'm not a native speaker. And
this is 100% on me, guys. I've talked us into this without any prior warning.
You're good. You're good. Let us go to planet Gora, a fringe world close to the Death Arc. It is a relatively inhospitable world with minimal human settlements. Just enough people live there to exploit the relatively rich resources of this planet. The GCPS have settled the planet for many years on the bones of an alien civilization, long since abandoned. It is also known that several shady operations are ongoing on this planet, as it is the perfect place for those who have something else to hide.
And then I'll just quickly read the event. The local news nonchalantly reports some unrest and disturbances on the refinery Zeta Gamma 27. Most workers know to ignore such news, as they are quite common. Safety and proper maintenance does not align well with the profit-orientated GCPS policies. So unsurprisingly, things do go wrong regularly. What they do not know, however, is the extent of how wrong things went this time. They are, however, about to find out. ... And actually, and just these little, and it's so much fun to do this kind of stuff. And genuinely, even if I'm playing a little game now, I always want to, okay, well, why am I on this planet or the space station, or why are we on the battlefield? You know, when you play a game of Kings of War, Mark, when it's like, okay, I've got goblins because I play goblins, and you've got rats because you play rats, and we're having a battle. We're all killing each other for some reason, and it's sort of like, I just love just a little bit of, just a little bit of flavour there of why we might be fighting each other. I find it makes such a big difference.
Oh, absolutely. I'm all about the narrative. It's a lot of fun, I mean, when Colin and I did our first edition armies and things like that, we used to name all the heroes that were running the little 500-point armies and things like that. And, he made up Colin von Karstein for 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy and all his armies. He had reams of letters and notes and all sorts of stuff on why his army was the way it was. And he'd always write himself into the campaigns. And, oh, yeah, it's all about the narrative and the fluff. I just absolutely love it. And
Must
actually,
so
that's
fun
one
to
of the
do it with the son as well. Must be so fun to do it with. Yeah.
And actually, one of the really cool things about the list builder on the companion app is you can type in the custom names and stuff. I know you could do it in, the later versions of, Easy Army and things like that, but it's easier to do in this one. It's just kind of cool, and it adds a lot to it. And yeah, it's all about the narrative. I mean, like when we're throwing battles together, we just played one the other day, and we just threw it together, and it's like, okay, here's what's going in. I'm trying to tempt Colin out of the undead with more undead and trying to get him to play Empire of Dust right now. So I had him play the Empire of Dust army, and I'm trying to convince him to, open it up a little bit. And I'm starting to work on a Jarvis Good undead army. So that's the other thing. I'm trying to compete for what my next army is going to be. So that would be fun. And actually, that's not a bad idea. Maybe I'll do Jarvis. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, I feel like, because I think he's an Ophidian, isn't he? So I feel like maybe he'll be more in the story. Yeah, fantastic. Amazing. Cool. Right. Should we talk about our Warpath Deadzone? Clem, have you done any Deadzone?
Yeah, I actually played a demo again at the local friendly gaming store. I brought my Plague and GCPS, and I played with a local player who basically was already convinced about the system. I think he already had bought his starter at that point and was still assembling his rats. But he wanted to still give the system a go. He plays a lot of Armada, so already a convinced Mantic player in a way. I feel like once you know one Mantic game and you're like, oh no, that's actually good stuff, it's so much easier to convince you to try another one of their games. And that's like, in that case, that's what happened, right? Like you said, oh, I kind of feel like I want to do some sci-fi now, but yeah, maybe I'll just start smaller with just skirmish. I've watched a couple of videos about Deadzone. Yeah, I'm getting started. That's it. Like it's very affordable anyway, and now I want to play it. And so for me, it was quite interesting because as you know, I don't have that much experience with Deadzone in general. But every time I play it, I'm like, yeah, that's a very smart game. It's a very cool system. I love how the table, feels like it's very small, but yet a lot of stuff happens there. I love the exploding hates system. Obviously, that really makes for at least once or twice in any given game, you will get something stupid, crazy happen, and I think that really makes a memorable experience. Like we had something like this, I don't remember, but like I think one of my GCPS dude rolled crazy amount of 8s, and he also rolled a crazy amount of 8s, and it's just you get a good laugh out of it, and I think it's just amazing for that. Yeah.
I think as well with new players, trying to tempt new players in, and you can show them these extraordinary, memorable little moments in a game, in a battle, that you can't get from other mediums. Just this bizarre luck of the dice. So yeah, I was running a demo, however long ago it was now, but it was a while ago. But since our last recording, and I rolled 3 8s. It's like, yeah, I'm good at Deadzone now. That's just roll 3 8s.
Yep, that's how it works.
But it's, as you say, Clem, you're creating these cinematic moments that make you both just laugh out loud. This is fun. This is just such incredible fun.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's not bonkers in the sense that it doesn't matter what you do, like it's super random. No, it does matter. Like it's still a very strategic game and so on. It's just there are sometimes something will spike, and it gives kind of a twist, keeps you on your toes in a way as well. Like you can't ever say, yeah, that's just a zombie. I'm fine. He can charge me because what a zombie can do, right? What a zombie can do is roll a shit ton of 8s and wreck your face. And so I think it's really nice because it creates cool narratives, but also on a game mechanic perspective, I think it's really cool.
And the beauty of it is, we talked about it many, many times, but almost all the rolls are opposed rolls where both players start with exactly the same amount of dice, exactly the same probability, pretty much. Okay, they might have different stats, but you're usually both rolling 3 dice with similar stats. But then it's the strategy of clever play of, well, if I'm shooting, I want to be higher up and I want to have a clear line of sight, and clever play that obviously skews it. So, okay, you're still only rolling 3 dice and I'm suddenly rolling 8 dice.
Yep.
But then there can be something absolutely nuts where someone rolls 3 8s and suddenly the little rat that had no chance is suddenly, doing something absolutely crazy. And it's just those two things, I think, together, where there's that clever strategy plus every now and again something bonkers happens, is just makes for a really fun time.
Yeah, I mean, to give a side example, I love the double 1 rule in Kings of War, but I think the exploding 8 is even more, right? Like it's because it's true, sometimes the double 1 is a bit frustrating because it's so
the 8 is a positive thing. Yeah, the 8s, it feels like a positive thing, not a negative thing, because the double 1s feels a punishing thing rather than
sometimes it can be. I'm very strictly against removing it from the game because it always keeps you on your toe. There always could be a
you can never guarantee it. You can never guarantee
have a 100% certainty of something, and this I like. I think it's important for the game. But
maybe Kings of War
even more. Yeah.
Maybe Kings of War switches to D8s.
Then we need to buy a lot more D8s. Why not?
I'm all right. I bought a ton of D8s for that event that I couldn't go to. I bought a ton of them. Yeah, really cheap ones, but they'll do the job.
Yeah. I also have, I think, a fair amount of them. But it's just I don't want to scare more people out of the game. But anyway, yeah.
One thing we haven't mentioned, guys. So we're moving on to. Should we talk about our Pannilore?
Pannithor, yeah.
Yeah, Pannithor. That's what I mean. Yeah, Pannithor.
Golloch's a hot topic with me.
Can't wait to talk about Golloch. One thing actually we haven't mentioned, and maybe we should, is one thing I did do this month was upset every single Kingdoms of Men player in the world, and got I don't know if you guys listened to the last. Was it the last episode of Countercharge?
A couple of them, I think.
So I'm the first person.
You're infamous.
Yeah, I'm infamous, right? So I'm the first person who got a complaint against them on the Countercharge Facebook group.
And so you're proud of that?
No, I'm actually no. I mean, the idea I upset anyone is I don't like it all. So obviously I put out a big apology. I hate the idea of upsetting people. I don't want to upset anyone. But the army should not be in the game, and I hope they finish for 4th edition. But...
Who doesn't like a good controversy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I to be honest, I was being a bit. It was all very tongue in cheek, but I was a bit more provocative than I should have been. So apologies, everybody, if I upset anyone listening. But
actually, I'd like to see them in the game, and what I'd like to see is semantic models. And I think that there's a huge narrative advantage there because there's a ton of humans that are in this Pannithor, as opposed to just the Basileans and, stuff like that. I just really think that, all across the Archavacian plain and things like that, there is such an opportunity for good humans, neutral humans, evil humans, all these warlords. It is just, the Northern Alliance, there's just so much they could do with it. They really could. And I understand why they don't want to make plastic humans, because everybody makes plastic humans. But if you want to sell Mantic models, and you want to get into the STL business where you're, doing parts and pieces and upgrades and things like that, it would be an awesome opportunity for them. I personally think so.
So that actually makes a lot of sense to me, Mark, because the reason I don't want them in the game is that because they're deliberately generic in a way that Mantic can't mantify them. So obviously Mantic have kind of said, at times I think they've been pretty quiet about it, but the idea is that if you play an army that has Mantic, Mantic supports, it has Mantic models, your army is safe, right? It's going to be supported. If you've got Forces of the Abyss army, you're good. Play your Mantic models. Obviously, the whole point of Kingdoms of Men is it's a way to get new players in. And hey, if you've got any kind of Song of Ice and Fire, GW models, Perry models, whatever you've got, just come and play Kings of War. But that the very nature of how generic it is means that they can't mantify it. If they can figure out a way to mantify that so that Mantic are supporting it, I don't have a problem with it at all. I just want to see them do that, and I think it would be really interesting if they could. The Basilian models are fairly. I think the Basilian army, the models are actually nicer than Mantic make them look. I don't think the Elohi are great. I actually got a load of the Elohi. They're not brilliant models. But our friend Manuel has a Basilian army with Sisterhood. He's got the Foot Knights or whatever they're called. They're actually the army looks great, and I feel like it's one of those situations where Mantic have not made that have not put it in the best light. So possibly you could use those models for Kingdoms of Men. I'm not sure.
Well, I don't know if they have the older ones, and I know Ronnie hates the faces on them and stuff, but I think you could use those possibly for Kingdoms of Men and recycle those in. A lot of people don't like them. They look a little CGI and things like that, but I don't know. I think they could very easily mantify Kingdoms of Men. I really do. And I think that it could open up a huge opportunity for you to do narrative and to build your own custom warband, warlord, whatever. I just do. I just think that there's an opportunity that's just laying there for them. And I understand that. And, if they want to license, maybe some Kingdoms of Men models or something like that. But I just think that if you get that base model down and you get those different, like different heads or arms or something on a base body, and just get some more generic shields. You could really do something with that to make it cool. And it's a great place with the fluff. So you could work with Winged Hussar and, maybe even get a book or something like that going and things like that to talk about it. And I just think that there's a place there. And Kingdoms of Men is in, Armada. They have ships and things like that. You're supposed to be using the ones from Warlord basically for that. But, so there's some tie-ins. They might be able to work something out. I'm just a fan of that. That's one of the things I've also talked about with them for filling their ranges out is if they would license some models from, other people or something like that if they wanted to. But hopefully they can fill it out on their own. But yeah, I think they could. I really do. In one of the earlier Narrative Workshop episodes, back when Jordan was with us, Jordan and Ben were going off on, doing coats of arms and, banners and all sorts of things and stuff like that. They were talking about putting a heraldry book back together back then too. So, that was back in the early days when the fluff was, not even all that well developed. So, and I've always thought it's an opportunity for them, but, what can you do? They've got so much to do. Yeah. How do you prioritize it? So
that's true. But the thing is, as you describe it, it could be relatively easy to do, right? Like you go to any manufacturer that has some humans already that you're sort of friends with, just get a license to buy some sprues from them, like a like a few big boxes of sprues from them, and then boom, you just a bit lists or fluff around it, and then you get. I think my main concern with Kingdom of Men is a lot of it feels by nature generic, and so if they find a way to bring it back into their universe and make it really a Mantic thing, then I would be supporting it. I think what I'm a bit tired of is the genericity in a way. I also see where it comes from and how useful it can be, but yeah, I also agree that with Chris in a way that they need to make a statement a bit and do, okay, now this is our universe, this is our game, this is how it's shaped and so on. Yeah. Anyway.
Clem has just summed up how I feel beautifully. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, Mark, I mean, when you talk about it like that, I'm like, oh, this is so exciting. Yeah, I'm back in. Yeah, let's do Kingdoms of Men. But leaving it as it is, almost as a placeholder, and the kind of sad thing is, if people, if Jordan is going to all this work himself for his army, well, it's almost a shame it just ends there, really. Well, can't we do something with that? If someone's putting in the work, let's make this part of the official story. Let's build this out. If a player is going to all this trouble, I'm sure it's good, right? Because he's lovingly handcrafting his army. Like, I'm sure this stuff is going to be useful to other players too. Let's kind of share the knowledge, really.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, back when we tried to get the Countercharge Journal going, actually, you can find one issue of it over on the Winged Hussar Publishing website. You can see our one and only Mantic Journal over there. We tried to get it restarted, but that's where all that information was supposed to go. But we had a couple of editors, flame out on us over time and things like that. So, but the offer is still there from Winged Hussar if we can ever put it back together again, and that would be a place we could actually publish it. So, which is very nice.
That's a really cool idea. I really like that. Fantastic. Cool. And Clem, so Kings of War, have you done anything this month?
Yeah, so I mean now it's a bit in the past, but basically we played a gaming day a few weeks ago. It was again a pretty good one. We had a good amount of ambush games. Some people played 2300, like the usual. I think I played one ambush game with an entirely new player, and she's getting started with Night Stalkers. Then I played 2300 with the army of someone else, because I didn't bring my own 2300 list. And we also had some people play at half size, like 10mm scales. And it was a really good time, and we hired several new players. So all in all, quite a win situation. And we're also now organizing to improve a bit our terrain situation, because basically most of the terrain we use during those events is stuff that I had made myself. And now found a couple more people to jump in and help me paint some stuff. And build a bit more terrain for more tables. So that's pretty cool, and I really hope that sometime next year we'll manage to get enough tables for events with 8 Kings of War table, and then bring in people not just from the local scene, but also maybe have some people travel from, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours outside of the city and come over for the weekend, because I think it's always nice to see new faces. There's also something, when you play with 10 more people around you. I think it's a nice feeling as well. So yeah, I've painted my giant. I got it with the Vanguard Kickstarter, so that was 4 years ago, 4.5, and it's been white forever since. And now I've decided, okay, now it's time. It's always scary to find a big model. But
so intimidating, those giants, aren't they? They're so intimidating to paint.
Yeah, in a way, yes. But it just ended up taking contrast paints quite well. It's just slapped some on it, and once I got started, it's like, okay, well, it's not that bad after all. And I played online as well, on the Universal Battle. it's always nice. I mean, I like the diversity of medium to play the game. I played a crazy goblin list with tons of like 4 hordes, I think, and I played it against Rordia. It also had 4 hordes of infantry, so it was and we decided to not play epic dwarf maps, but put a ton of terrain on it, like ambush levels of terrain on it, on a 6x4. And it was a busy table, but it was really interesting. It also looked so much better because we draw a road on the map, and we had a kind of a town, and obviously hordes had to navigate around this. But yeah, that's how it is. Like smaller units could fit in there, not the hordes, and just deal with it. And it made the game so much more interesting. So yeah, it's a nice experience.
I love the idea of the more terrain. Clem, I've often thought about this. If there's a road on a map, can you imagine giving it stuff that's on the road +1 speed?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, it's something missing from the rules, like interactions with the roads and interactions with rivers or stuff like this. I mean, you could always just make a difficult terrain for the rivers, but feels like it would maybe mess too much with what's going on. I don't know. Yeah, we should try it out and see exactly where it goes. Probably would be a bit hard to determine precisely. Okay, when are you on the road? And
yes, it would. Yeah,
all this kind of stuff.
How wide is the road? Yeah, you're going to run into those kinds of things. That's true.
Maybe, but I think it was just a tiny reminder that. Playing with different shapes of terrain, different layouts of terrain really is something interesting. And if you stick to always epic dwarf maps, or even if you don't use those layouts, but the list of elements that you put on the table is always the same, always similar heights and definitions, then it's a bit limiting. And the game doesn't tell you to do that, right? Like it's always up to you to do something a bit crazier if you want to, and I think we should do that more often.
Did you win?
I think I lost. So during the gaming day, I lost with the ambush game. So I played my Forces of the Abyss against my Night Stalkers, and she destroyed me. Like I didn't intentionally misplay it. It's just she was a better player than I was. Then the 2300 game, I played Varangur. I think he won against Undeads. I think he won, but just on the edge. So I was happy because it wasn't my army, wasn't my list. And then on UB, I think it was a draw. Vince is gonna be angry at me because probably he actually won. No, I think he actually won. He won it. Like
Vince needs to start his own podcast so he can tell the people.
Yeah, he's actually looking into doing a YouTube channel and do battle reports. So that's something we might film at some points. But it takes so much work to make it happen. So far it's still working on it, but it hasn't happened. But yeah, no, super cool. And I haven't played lately because life happened. Also didn't paint too much in the past couple of weeks. But now I'm getting started with it again. My plan is kind of like to finish my ogres. I'm also waiting on some bits for my salamanders, like the ceremonial guards. I just need to jump in and paint those guys. But that's about it for Kings of War from my side. What about you, Chris? What have you done for Kings of War?
I honestly don't think I've done anything for Kings of War, to be quite honest.
Yeah?
I haven't played or anything. Mark, what about you?
Oh, you muted though.
Yes, I couldn't get my mute off. Well, be still my heart, Chris. I mean, Kings of War is where it's at. So, but no, actually, I got in a game the other day. I dragged Colin out of retirement. I tempted him with my Empire of Dust 500-point army that I just painted up. And it was a great game. Had a really good time. And we rolled up turn 7, went into it, and he gets my best sports vote because I was going to charge his enslaved guardians, and he's like, "Oh no, you should charge my cursed high priest." And it's like, okay, I will. And I did. And I wiped him out. And I got the game. And so I give him a lot of credit. But those are the types of games we play. We're not super competitive and things like that. We just have a lot of fun. And it was really good playing again. We played a bit at the beginning of 3rd edition. And then he went into retirement, basically playing video games and goofing around and stuff like that. And so now I've been tempting him back, and I think I've got him. So we're scheduled to play Firefight and also some more Kings of War over the weekend here. So, the holiday is very well timed. I'm a little bit tired of work, and I really needed some desperate hobby time, and some gaming time. And I just love the small point games. So we've been playing them since 1st edition, and he was little. So we play in the tournaments and stuff, and that's probably why we don't do the best. And, we're not on high tables or anything else like that. But, we just love them and have a lot of fun. So now my next thing is to try to tempt him and get him into the painting table. So I keep working on that right now to kind of lure him back. So, and we'll see. So my goal is to throw 500-point armies together for all the armies. That has been my goal for many, many years, but I'm really going to crack back on it right now and see how fast I can get it done. So I'm really trying to hone up some speed paint techniques and things like that. So I've painted 3 500-point armies this year so far, and I'm going to do more. Unfortunately, one of my older 500-point armies I painted up was ogres, and now we've got these brand new ogre models. And it's like, oh, boy, where do I prioritize those guys in the list right now? So, but so it's fun. I've got some rebasing projects I'm working on too, with dwarfs and things like that. And I think I've got dwarfs and abyssal dwarfs. I definitely got to rebase those guys. Figure that out. I've got an elf army that's kind of like half rebased. And then also I'm thinking about just burying their bases in some type of putty or sculpt them on mountains or something, and just try to bury those old ugly bases in there. So I've got lots in the off, and I've got 4 days off here. So my mind is just a whirl right now with hobby projects for Kings of War. So I have more imagination and more projects in my mind than I could ever possibly have time for. So. But definitely looking forward to it. So
amazing. And most of that are armies you've already done, right? So this is the hobbyist is never finished.
Never. So keep going.
That's the fun part of it.
Yeah, I still have a ton of Warhammer armies floating around here, sitting in boxes too. So, but I've really floated into just using the Mantic models. Oh, that just reminded me. I've got an old Twilightkin army I got to get rebased too. So that was my very first army I used in my very first Kings of War tournament. Back in 1st edition was Twilightkin. I was a Twilightkin player back then. So.
Nice.
All Mantic models and stuff like that. So, you guys see? You've inspired me. It's going to be that one or the Abyss, and I've got a couple others. So very, very good. I'll report back.
And Mark as well, it's just so wonderful that you play with your son like that. It's just such quality, father-son time, isn't it? It really is, just rolling some dice and moving some models around. It's just so amazing. Fantastic. And do you play, Mark, locally, do you only play with Colin, or have you got a couple of local players? Do you play with anyone else, or do you just play at tournaments, if not with Colin?
I mostly play at tournaments or here at the house with Colin, and that's mostly due to lack of time. It's very odd. I will fly to Texas to play in a tournament, but I won't play in one that's, less than 10 minutes from the house. I've got to kind of get that fixed around, but I'm starting to get my work life straightened out a little bit now, and starting to get that type of stuff going a little bit looser. Hopefully, a little bit more time family wise here. I can free up. So, but we do have a couple of players around here locally. I have thought about driving down and seeing Felix Castro and Mike Carter and playing down there. Dayton's about 3 hours from here, so that thought has drifted into my mind and then drifted back out again. But I love playing with those guys. They're a lot of fun. There's a group in Columbus I think that somebody just came up here. I can't remember where they're at, but they're north of Columbus, but south of Cleveland. And I know Eric Reese drove down there recently to have a game day with him. And a big shout out to Eric and his family. They do a nice job promoting Kings of War up here around us. So I'd love to get out more than I have, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, mostly. And I love playing with the kids. It's really important for me. When they were younger, we played a lot of 40K and things like that. And it was 5th edition, and I loved it. My 2 kids were downstairs playing 40K together and screaming and yelling. And, it was a good time, Ultramarines versus the Tiger Marines. So they had a really good time. Nice. And then my youngest was painting up wood elves. I've still got tons of stuff, painting contests. My youngest has 2 crystal brushes from Adepticon from the kids painting division.
That's amazing.
Colin has 1, so I got I turned them into gamers early, so, and they've taken a break here and there, so we'll see what happens. And if Tobes comes with us to the UK, I'm trying to get Toby to play in Clash of Kings, so we'll see what happens.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but I highly recommend playing with your kids. It's just a really good time and just a lot of quality time. So
my kids are still a bit young, but we've got them rolling dice and this kind of thing. We just roll dice together. It's good fun.
Not kids yet.
About 6 years old, 5, 6, But the good thing is, like, they came to me and said, "Dad, these models are really cool. What do you do with them? I want to paint." And that was it. Off we went.
Fantastic. So. Amazing. It's good fun, isn't it? It really is. Super. So, do we want to move on to slow grow?
Very quickly, yeah. I think, we, as in you, are done with it. I finished painting some of them before you did, like the 10mm ones I finished first. I think.
That's true.
I take that as a draw.
So, Mark, this section is effectively the Clem denouncement section, where we just belittle Clem for not finishing it. Yeah. So So Clem, you beat me doing the 10mm, although I have now also finished the 10mm.
You also finished them. That's true.
I did finish them. Yeah, 2 evenings I think it took me in the end.
Yeah, I think it was
ages ago now.
Right.
Yeah, it is great how quickly you can get those done, particularly when you're dry brushing fire. It's always a good time.
Yeah, for fire is so easy to make whatever the scale in a way, like to make it look decent, very fast. But it was nice to experiment with my color scheme. Obviously, at a smaller scale, you have even less details, so the color scheme is slightly simpler. But I just need to jump in for the larger ones. I'm still waiting on. So out of the additional bits to make ceremonial guards from Mantic, and it was we did a big order for Mantic points, and it's just taking forever for some reason. In theory, the parcel shipped early December now. It still hasn't arrived to Berlin, so I'm a bit. Right now, I'm thinking, okay, it must be the Christmas is not the best time for parcels to be in the mail. But I'll start to freak out if I don't see it arrive sometime in January, I think. But and then we'll be done with our Salamanders slow grow project, and we can think about what the next project will be. I think we already agreed it will be Twilight King when they come out. So I think that's still a given. I think maybe I need to do something about the Empire of Dust as well, like. I have half of a starter, might get like another box or something, whatever is needed to bring it to 1,000 points of ambush, maybe. So maybe that could be another nice slow grow challenge, or like a MUP challenge. Like, okay, which box are you getting, or 1 or 2 boxes, and make a small ambush force with it. That could be.
So I've got that 2-player starter set. I've got all of it, so I've got both halves. Right. So I'm in the same situation as you. What I really want to do is do 2 ambush forces out of that, And then I think we discussed it previously, Clem, right? It was your idea of I'm just going to take this to the local shop and just leave it there with the big red book.
Right.
Run demos, but also just leave it there so people can see and people can theoretically, just take it and play, maybe leave a games map there, a bit of terrain.
I think also just seeing it in, in a glass cabinet or something with a box, like you have the box, you have the content of it painted, and you see the price for it, and like that looks actually very feasible and really nice. And I kind of want the same box because your local gaming store, they don't have that much miniatures at all, right? So
a song of ice and why can I not say that today? A song of ice and fire. Why am I saying feist? That's not a word. A song of ice and fire is relatively popular there, which is obviously a rank and flank game.
Right.
I've ever played it. But yeah, it's there's loads of so collectible card games are super popular there.
Right. No, but what I'm saying
Star
is like
Wars games are pretty popular.
They don't have like 20 meters of shelves with GW stuff like in many gaming stores.
Point.
This is not the type of store that you have locally. And so in a way, I think many people who go there aren't that much into miniatures yet. But at the same time, it's kind of like the field is open, right? Like it's not like you get 20 meters of 40K and Age of Sigmar to compete with. And so I'm sure if you leave a couple of armies painted and ready to use for demos, and maybe a small note, send me a message, and I'm happy to introduce you to the game. I'm sure you will get new players like this.
Yeah, it's a great idea, Clem. Yeah, great idea. So I'm going to do that. And the I've just looked briefly, but for example, the hard plastic ogres, they're absolutely beautiful. They really are. I know lots of people have said it, but they're some beautiful sprue. It really is. Lovely, crisp detail. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing that. Cool. Anything else to discuss on the slow grow? I think. What do you think, Mark? What'll be your next project you're working on?
Well, I'm not sure. We kind of talked about that a little bit. I'll be doing a 500-point army, either a rebase or a paint. I can't figure out which one, but I do have a question for you on the slow grow. What 10mm armies figures are you guys using, and what rules are you using? I mean, you're using Kings of War, but
of course,
are you basing the 10mm like you do with War Master, or are you flipping those around, or what are you guys doing?
Not exactly.
I love 10mm,
So the way it started is I've always been interested in 10mm miniatures because I think they look super cool, and I had some Demon World miniatures. So it's 15, I think, maybe Demon World. I can't remember now. But I had some of those back in the day, and I loved them. And I've always thought Kings of War really would work super nicely at 10mm. And I managed to just convince local players, like, hey, here's what I want to do. I'm going to get some War Master STL files. I'm going to laser cut, because I have a laser cutter. I'm going to laser cut some bases for it. And I'm going to make a 2,000-point army. If anyone is interested, like, would anyone else from the local group join me in that? And actually, a few people said yes, I would happily do that. And so I think we were 4 or 5 people jumping in, because I thought if I'm the only person to do that, no one will play. It's a bit stupid, right? And so we built a few armies like this, and then gave it a try. So we started from nothing, right? Like we didn't have already existing War Master armies. We just literally created armies nice model. It's showing a 3D printed model. But so what we do is we just divide everything by 2. So some people use centimeters instead of inches, which I think can work. But to be honest, before getting started, I was worried it would be too small to be accurate enough for gaming purposes. And so that was my main concern. And so when the decision was, do I want to divide by 2.5 or divide by 2? Well, I'd rather divide by 2 because it will be slightly bigger and hopefully will still be accurate enough to, decide front or flank or ranges for inspiring and everything. And sure, you have to do some math, like divide by 2. Like this model can move 6 inches on the profile. How far can it go on the table? Well, that's 3 inches. how hard can that be? Or the profile says 7. That one is a tough one. Yeah, 3.5. Yeah, I can do math in my head. At that level, it's still fine. And in the end, I love it. Like the table is 2 by 3, and it really fits on any table. That's amazing. And the other thing is your whole army fits in not even a shoebox. Like literally, it's smaller than like a cookie box. Like 2,000 points at half size is so small. It's I love this aspect of it, because I live in a small flat in the city center, so having another army is kind of a storage issue. If it's 10 mil, well, I can hide a small box somewhere. Also, to take it to play somewhere, just go throw it in my backpack. It's magnetized and it's easy, like no question to transport it. So I honestly, I really, really enjoy it. I wanted to convince Chris to give it a try, so I gifted him the Salamanders army. Like I asked him for his list and printed some Forest Dragon files for like Lizardman, basically for War Master. So you don't get all the entries, but you can kind of figure out what fits. And I found some fire elementals also in my mini factory or whatever. And you just make it work. And I think it's a really, really interesting way to play. So that's about it. Just divide by 2 and you're golden.
Well, as you can see, I'm big into the forest dragons. So
Right.
I am trying to get them myself. It's the only reason I want to get a resin printer right now more than anything else is to print 10 mil. So
that's what I do. Like I bought my resin printer exclusively for that. Because initially I thought, okay, I can buy them printed already. But if I make 2 armies, it's about the price of the printer, right? And so I might as well just get the files, get the printer. Knowing myself, I'll do more than just those 2 armies, and like also print some bits here and there. And most of the time, my resin printer just put away. Like I don't use it all the time. Every month or so, like whenever my buffer of project fills up, I take it out of storage, set it up, print for 2 days straight, put it away, and then I have some models to paint for the next month or the next 2 months. And I think it's an amazing technology, and I think it works so well for 10 mil models. Just amazing. Another advantage of doing divide by 2 with 10 mil models is you can fit a lot more models per base. And for example, my first half-scale army is undeads. And the idea is it's the skeletal legions of Sakdos the Conqueror. That's the fluff for my army. So Sakdos is in French is bag of bones, basically. So that's my big guy. And so the idea is I want a big guy on a dragon and as many skeletons as I can fit in the list. And so I have like 3 hordes of skeletons, which I would never do on a normal army, right? It's like they're not so good and that's so much to paint. In 10 mil, slap some contrast paint on it. They paint very fast. And every single horde has like 75 models on them. And so they really look like a proper horde. Like the army, when it's on the table, like it's tiny, obviously, but it really gives you this impression like, oh yeah, those are 2 armies clashing. It's not like MMC units here and there. No, it's like a lot of models on the base. And it's very cheap and very easy to paint. So again, it probably sounds like it, but I love Kings of War in half scale. And I wish Mantic was just giving some directions. Here's how you guys should do it. And then you can organize events, do whatever you want. We don't sell any models yet, but maybe one day we will. And that's just one more way to buy our rule books and enjoy our games. So please do so. And that's it.
So, Mark, in conclusion, Clem hates talking about 10 millimeter.
Yeah.
And honestly, you can't get him talking, honestly. Cool. Right, guys, we've got about 30 minutes left. So should we move things on?
Sure.
Clem likes 10 millimeter. Yeah. That was very interesting. Cool. So, Nevermind the Gollochs. Here's Pannilore. So I read the Dwarf Lore in the Kings of War rulebook and the Enchanted Empires book. The green rule book. So I read this because Steve Hildrew said, oh, did you know Golloch is secretly controlled by the Abyss? Oh, no, we didn't know that. Now, that's not in there. So apparently it was in one of the short stories or something like that. So we still don't know about that.
Oh, Steve is a troll. That's
Steve.
also...
Steve then went on to say, when I started looking into it, Steve was like, "Oh, it's not worth paying money for. Don't pay money for it." And it's like, "Oh, great. What am I supposed to do now, Steve? Thank you so much." But I've got to say, the dwarf lore is, I find it super generic. The dwarves, they're in their holds. It's very Lord of the Rings, let's say. There's the berserker types. They're depressed dwarves, and the dwarves, they don't offer any kind of therapy, so they just want to end it all gloriously. That's their thing. No mention of Golloch being evil, but there is a big imperial army, and that's not traditional. So traditionally, the holds would all have their own standing armies, but Golloch has built this massive imperial army. So that's kind of a new thing that's happened, new development in Pannithor. The free dwarves have been scattered and beaten by the abyssal dwarves in the Halpi Mountains, and actually this was kind of the one thing that I read and went, "Oh, this would be really cool," because as you can tell, I was pretty unenthusiastic about the lore. It's Lord of the Rings dwarves, right? But the one thing that made me really excited was this. I love this idea that you could have a little campaign with the abyssal dwarves, the free dwarves, and the imperial dwarves, where the imperial dwarves, Golloch, who's secretly controlled by the evil, is basically going, "Okay, look, I want to assert my authority. I'm in charge of all the dwarves." And you could have like a little dwarf civil war. Obviously, the evil dwarves will be there as well. You could maybe have the Northern Alliance in there. You could have the Forces of the Abyss. And I'd love to see that as a little campaign of like, okay, right, there's free dwarves, there's imperial dwarves. Let's sort this out by playing it out on the table. I would love that. To me, that all sounds super, super exciting. So I hope Mantic put that on the docket to move the dwarf story forward, if that makes sense.
Interesting. So wait, what are free dwarfs? Like, where do they come from? Like, what's the story there?
Well, I don't really know. They were in the Halpi Mountains. They were free dwarves.
So now they've rebelled
moved.
dwarves, or
Mark, help me out.
Yeah, I think that mostly they're trying to escape Golloch and his rule over there. So, but they were the free dwarves. So, up in the Halpi Mountains, I'm still very salty about this whole thing because during the Mantic Kings of War worldwide campaign, Good won the area in the Halpi Mountains and still lost. So big shout out to my buddy Rob Berman. I understand Halpi's Rift came. It was a great campaign, blah, 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 but still. The Free Dwarfs, I believe, carried the day there, but somehow still lost. So, but no, it was a good story and everything else like that. But yeah, Golloch's kind of like the Basileans or Basilians or whatever you want to call them today. But I'm a Basilean guy myself. He's one of those so good that he's bad kind of guys, or so bad that he's good. You take your choice there, but he's the Imperial, so I always think of him more as, I think of the Empire and Star Wars. So that's kind of my viewpoint of Golloch. So
I always think about the evil British and the colonials, when we're talking about the free dwarves.
interesting.
Just stop taxing us on tea, that kind of thing.
Oh, well, hey, that kind of plays out too, as far as that goes. But, it's so bad that they left, and went to the Halpi Mountains and things like that. So, but I think there's a lot of room. And, there is, Wing to Star is bringing out a dwarf novel.
Mike Rossi wrote it, right? It's supposed to be great.
Wrote it. Yep, it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. I have not read it yet, but I understand that it's pretty good, and I'm really looking forward to it. I think dwarfs are underserved, as you just mentioned, and is just, really rife for, much more lore and things like that, and new models. But, that's another story we can get into later. But
as you kind of touched on, they've obviously had their Halpi's Mountain campaign, so probably a narrative campaign isn't coming. But I agree, Mark. I feel like somehow they're kind of underserved somehow.
I mean, there's still space for something, right?
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
It's-
you don't
it's an
want to be
opportunity.
pushing something that you can't sell. So you want to make sure that you're selling good models and, you know, stuff like that. The Abyssals, Abyssal Dwarfs just came out with brand new models. Goblins got new models. It was a good campaign. That was a great starter box, too, with the Rakin and the Goblins. That was a really good starter box. So I can't blame Mr. Berman, but I'm still a little salty about it.
But it does feel a bit strange, though, doesn't it, when you have these narrative campaigns and they'd obviously scripted out the end result, but then it feels a bit odd if, oh, great, Free Dwarves won, and oh, wait, it looks very much like we lost.
Yes, definitely. So, but there's a lot of fertile territory. And that's the thing about the narrative for Pannithor. There is so much that is not written, you know? I mean, I wish we were yes and no. Narrative-wise, I wish we were forward about 10, 20 years. It would be great so the background's fleshed out. Then again, on the other hand, we're here on the ground floor, and we get to watch it all develop and also have a hand in getting it developed. So that's the exciting part.
And Mark, if we look at something like Space Marines, you can't really, unless you make up your own chapter or something, you can't go, okay, I'm playing Dark Angels and this guy is Dave and he's in charge. And, you know, you'll start doing that and very quickly someone will say, no, that's not right. Whereas obviously with Pannithor, it's so open that it's just like, well, do what you like. You know, you've got so much room to maneuver yourself. I think that's really cool. Mark, am I being overly negative with the dwarf lore, do you think? Am I being too dismissive?
No, I think that in certain areas, the lore is very, very thin. And so, I mean, there's just area for develop. When Rossi's book comes out, you're going to see a lot of stuff. And Ben Stoddard is also working on a dwarf book. So you have a lot of background for dwarfs coming. So it's going to be very interesting. And I'd love to get the guys on to talk about it, but books haven't come out yet and they can't spill the beans all early. So, but it's something that's definitely going to be discussed and stuff like that. So you will get a lot of background and things like that coming for the dwarfs. But in certain areas, I mean, you got to remember, like back in first edition, our lore was limited to what was in the unit entry. I mean, literally, there weren't any books. There was nothing. I mean, it was wide open back then. So, you know, and then we just keep getting supplements. And, you know, the one that I have not read yet that would be interesting is that Iron and Ore, I think was the name of it or something like that. It was for Vanguard that came out.
The Vanguard supplement, right.
Yeah. I actually have that in the house here somewhere. It's just Vanguard just didn't take off here. You know, to me, it's kind of like watching. You think so?
I like it. I like some aspects of it are great. It didn't do what it was intended to do, but it did something interesting for me. So
yeah.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I think the concept's great. I think it would be a great skirmish game, kind of Deadzone like. I think they need to clean the rules up and make it faster playing. It's kind of like watching paint dry for me or grass grow. It's so slow. So, but beyond that, I mean, I like the concept of it and was very much a supporter of it in the beginning. And, you know, we had Matt Gilbert on Countercharge and I was all in. And then it just kind of, you know.
There's a lot of token on the table, that's for sure. I mean, the power dice mechanic that we now have in Firefight was in Vanguard. And I think for me, that was really a good aspect of it. But yeah, some rules are missing, I think, in Vanguard to make it really interesting, like the terrain rules are a bit lacking, I think, and some of them are a bit too much. Like there's too many tokens on the table when you actually play. That's for sure. But anyway, it's something.
Oh no, it's a good point. Well, say that's why Ambush is coming, right? So
right,
you know,
absolutely.
kind of fill that gap, and then once Ambush is in there and filling that gap, and you're bringing in new players to Kings of War, then you can do the skirmish version, and you can really do it upright. So
yeah, but it can proudly be its own thing, right? Because it's a game more complicated than Kings of War, and that's what put me off. Because I just got the book, you know, when they did the updated book with the Iron, whatever it was, the supplement, they did them both together. I picked that up, but it doesn't make sense in my brain, rightly or wrongly, that wait a minute, this game is more complicated than Kings of War, and I feel like now Ambush is there, that's fine. They can Vanguard can be its own thing. It can be a super crunchy game. That's fine. It's doing its own thing, but it no longer now has to serve that as an introduction to Kings of War, because it was never going to be that. Right?
Never going to work like that.
Never going to work like that. Cool. Sorry, guys. I'm just conscious of the time, so let's just.
Oh yeah, we got to move on.
Push through. Yeah, as always. When you do all the games, Mark, it's challenging. So, listener questions.
Well,
so
it's also like you said. Once you get through the intro, it's three friends talking about model toys, so we're just going to go for hours. So
absolutely,
exactly right. Cool. So, listener questions. So, question number 1 from all-round all-star Peter Thomas Swift. As it's the last pod of the year, what does 2023 hold for Chris Thomas, Clement Quinson, and the podcast in terms of hobby events, tournaments, etc.? So I feel like we've already touched on this a load. So I think 2023, Clem, is going to be like 2022 for us, but more so, right? We're just doing more stuff. So we're both planning on organising more stuff locally, getting our local communities set up. Then at some point, inviting other people to come and join us in the local communities. We're planning on going to Clash of Kings in the UK. I'm off to a tournament next month. So we're just trying to do
Twilight Kin,
more of everything. Twilight Kin, yeah, exactly. So it's 2023, I think, will be a really, really exciting year, and I'm super looking forward to it. And Peter Thomas Swift also asked, what were our highlights of 2022? For me, the highlight was just my birthday weekend, where you did such an extraordinary job. That was easily my highlight. Thanks, buddy.
It was a pleasure. It was a very amazing weekend and a memorable weekend. So yeah, hobby-wise and like gaming-wise, definitely number 1. For me, I think the other big things in 22 were Firefight coming in, because I was a bit skeptical at first. It was like, why would you try to fight against 40k? Like, it's a suicide mission. But I think they did a beautiful job with it, and I think it's still a tough position to be in, but I think Firefight really has fighting arguments in its favor, and I think in the long run it will do great, even better than now. And so for me, that's also something that I have good memories of. Those are the main things.
We touched on it before, but actually, that question of like, why would you want to go against 40k? Well, actually, the answer is you don't. You get other people to play it. You don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't take 40k on head on, as you said, Clem. Like we're sick of trying to show people that play 40k, hey, this is a much more fun game. Because in my brain, that's really important. Like, look how fun and balanced this is. Well, actually, a lot of people, rightly or wrongly, they don't care about that. Right? That's not a priority. So, which makes my head explode. But
it's different people.
They're going to do what they're going to do. So yeah, exactly. It's a totally different thing. Yeah. So that's a really interesting and just very, very quickly, Mark. Just anxious for time. This is the part of the pod where I just get incredibly stressed. What were your sort of your highlights of 2022, and what are the things you're most looking forward to in 2023? Do you think?
Oh, well, my biggest highlight probably was getting back to Adepticon, because it's so much fun, and just seeing everybody, and taking paint classes with Nick Baton from GW, and that was just a really good time. That was probably my big highlight. Always, anytime I do anything with Countercharge, it's near and dear to my heart. So, I'm retired from the active cast, but I'm still involved, and I appreciate the guys keeping me involved over there. It's very, very nice. And, just getting back. I guess my other highlight is getting Colin out of retirement. I mentioned it a couple of times here. Happened late in the year, but very, very nice. So I'm excited about that. So it's good to be back in the hobby. Things are slowing down at work again, and for me at least. And so it's nice. I'm starting to get my mojo back. So I'm very, very happy about that. Very much looking forward to 2023. So
fantastic. And guys, very, very briefly, I had a really weird question. Do we think so I was thinking about renting armies. So if you had a painted army, like renting a suit, right? Is there a market for, lend me your army for a weekend for, $50 or something? Is that a thing, or have I made this up? Do we think that's a possible gap in the market?
I think personally, it's a hard proposition, in the sense that usually there's kind of an attachment more to your armies, or like building the list and figuring out how it works. You might want to play more than just for one time or one weekend. I think potentially, but that's already something that happens, right? Like people who have several armies that can lend one army to a newcomer, or someone who is sort of interested in playing games but doesn't have enough time to invest into the hobby to assemble a full army and so on. But then it's not really renting, it's more lending, right?
Yeah.
You see
so
what I
it
mean?
kind of, yeah. So it already kind of unofficially happens on the grey economy.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, like, how do you price that, right? Because when you think about how much time is spent painting the models, and the value of the models themselves, and the risk of breaking
stuff gets broken, yeah, totally,
or damaged in any way, I think it's a very difficult proposition for an actual commercial contract.
Yeah.
But the lending of an army to friends or even random strangers, like you plan to do for your local shop, right? Like just sponsor or support your local community in a way, make two armies, drop them there, and leave them open for playing. I think this is a much better formula.
Yeah, Clem, you're doing a great job with actually what isn't a very interesting question. But I'm going to stop you there so we can move on to our topic of the month. Our love letter to Ambush. Fantastic. So when we get a guest on, we always ask them if they can bring a topic of the month, and this was something that Mark wanted to talk about. So I'm just going to hand it straight over to Mark and put myself on mute.
There you go. All right. Well, I've been a proponent of small point games ever since first edition. So I feel like a love letter to Ronnie. You finally listened to me, Ronnie. Thank you so much. I have been a strong proponent of this for years and years and years and years and years. I just think small point Kings of War is a lot of fun. And so everything that I have hoped for and wished for over the years is starting to come true, and I couldn't be happier. So, and the great thing is the people that have given me crap about it over the years and stuff like that, about playing at a proper points level and blah, 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 are all embracing Ambush now. And, it's fun. On the latest episode of Countercharge, I think when they did the year in review, I think Alex Koos's comment was, silly, good fun. And that's what it is. It's not meant to be super competitive. I look forward to playing in a tournament sometime with Ambush, and it's just a good time. And I like games that are fun, fast, and furious. So for me, they're like playing demo games. They're up and down in 45 minutes, sometimes less depending on how the battle goes. If you want to play 4 games in a night, easy. If you want to play quick and dirty, or if a game's going really bad and you want to re-rack it, you can re-rack it. It's just a good time. I just love them. And a lot of times the bigger point battles, and you guys will agree with this, I'm sure, 2,000 points or so, you're in for 2 hours or something like that. I can get 4 games in that, probably in that time frame, and they're just fun, fast, and furious. So I really love it. I also really, really happy that the unit bases are now coming in the Ambush sets. We talked about that earlier in the pod, about that. I think that's great for beginners, and it's just great. I'm so happy right now. So that is my love letter to Ambush. It's just so good to see. It's also nice, we talked about this a little bit in the 10 millimeter section too. It's nice to have some official rules. We had house rules that we used forever here, minimum of 4 units, no hordes, it was nice if you had a hero. We kind of just, we always had a hero because somebody had to be leading the ambush force. And that kind of self-leveled everything. Those were really basically our rules. And, it worked out great. Oh, no Titans. So no Titans, no hordes, 4 units, and, it all self-leveled. It was a lot of fun. Still having fun with it today. But again, it's great in the army builder. clicking in there and hit ambush, and it takes care of all the rules for you and everything else like that. So it's great to see. And the other nice thing is standardization across. So when you play, that was the way I played in my basement with my, homebrew rules. But now if I go to Adepticon or someplace else, I'll be able to play ambush with somebody else. And that's a great idea. I just thought about it. I'm definitely going to have to play some ambush while I'm over at Adepticon. That'll be great. They'll have some open tables with some terrain, and we can do it. I also really like that we can play on a 3x3 table. You just drop that deployment zone down to 6 inches, and you're all set to go. So it's great. So hopefully you guys are enjoying it as well.
I love it. I mean, I agree with everything you just said. With one nuance, I've always been a bit skeptical of doing demos at too low point levels, at least when I do demos with experienced gamers, because if I have 3 units per side, I'm kind of worried it's going to be boring. You know what I mean? And it's not kind of like the Kings of War experience. And so I always want to have sort of like 1,000 points or something, because then, yes, it's smaller and faster and everything. And now with Ambush, it's amazing. It fits on a smaller table, all the good things that you mentioned. And I completely agree. And it's still a full Kings of War game, in my opinion. Like, okay, maybe it's not as balanced. Maybe not yet. Maybe some things will change just within this context, right? Like Ambush is quite new now. But if there is a major gaming mode, maybe some of the rules will adjust to this mode as well later on. And also, all of the games that I've played so far, and it's maybe a dozen or something of Ambush with various factions and various people, none of them felt one-sided or boring or anything. I've always played them only at 1,000 points. Like, I haven't tried smaller sizes. But at 1,000 points, it is a full Kings of War game, and it goes much faster, and it takes less effort to build your army, less table space, less everything. And so I think it's just an amazing way to play Kings of War. And I also really appreciate the standardization, because there were, as you mentioned, like house rules earlier, like there was a few articles about, hey, you can go in a flash or something like that. I don't remember how it was called. But it's like, yeah, sure, maybe I can make a list for this, but who else was going to make a list for that? And so now that we have something that is very standardized, I think it
really opens it up massively, doesn't it, to be honest?
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a massive difference. The other thing is, I have to say, they've done a really good job with it. Like, it's smart. Like, it's not just, hey, play 1,000 points or less. No, they really tweaked the army composition rules in a way that makes sense, and it creates good armies and good results and interesting games to play. And so the limitations with the amount of points you can spend per unit and everything that they've done, I think it's very elegant. Like, it's simple, but it does really do its job well. And that part I really like. I wouldn't stop playing like full-size games, but Ambush in itself, I think, is really bringing a lot to the game. And I think it's an amazing job.
I think it gives a legitimate choice as well, because I love both. Because in Ambush, you do genuinely all the things Mark says. That's all true and it's all fantastic. But you do get the epic moments you get in a full game of Kings of War. You get the awesome, cool stuff happening. You get these crazy moments with the dice. It really is a wonderful experience.
Yeah, and like playing with the terrain and trying to maneuver and protect your flanks and try to get a flank. You do get all of that in a game of Ambush, right? And I think that part really works. So yeah, for sure, it's I think it's bringing a lot to the game, and it's not just smaller size. Like,
what's really interesting as well, Clem, is you kind of touched on it, is that in Ambush you're encouraged to put down more terrain, and then it works really, really well. And then we're suddenly like, okay, well, why aren't we doing this more in full-size Kings of War? Why not have more terrain? It's great. It makes it for more interesting games. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
cool.
No, absolutely.
I do wonder, because I think Kings of War, I think I'm right in saying the game is balanced on 2,000 points. Now, I don't think any of the three of us would have any interest in exploiting, sort of setting up a meta list or something for ambush. But I do wonder, it would be pretty obvious things like, maybe Soul Reaver infantry are probably super powerful in ambush, right? There's probably not much that can fight it. But I do wonder, theoretically, if we start to see a tournament scene around ambush, I wonder if theoretically things could be repointed for ambush. So if you select ambush, maybe things go up a little bit, maybe they go down a bit. I'd just be really interested to see if that might happen.
I think we still need to explore that a little bit, because sure, the Soul River regiment will be a murder machine, but at 230 points or whatever it is now, it takes a very big chunk of your army. Like, how do you score in the end, right? So
you've got to just kill everything on the other side, right, and just win by default. That'll be.
There are only 6 turns, like killing everything 6 or maybe 7 turns. I mean, sure, you can kill stuff, but I think what I like as well is from the perspective of someone who plays 2300 most of the time before ambush, it forces you to build lists differently. Like you play in different contexts. And suddenly you will see different things on the table. And so some units that you would probably not really take in like a standard Kings of War game, in ambush they make a lot of sense. Like you see a lot of troops, or troops have a lot more surviving power in ambush because they don't face the same kind of stuff.
And I've got to say, I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so for me, I think the amazing part about it is it's not just a diminished experience, it's a whole new world, and it brings like stuff on top of playing with a normal army building list and 2300 points. And so I think that's just amazing that they managed to cram all of that in a smaller point game, in a faster gaming experience and so on. So yeah. But I sure hope that events and tournaments and so on will start to include also ambush. And I mean, it's not that hard, right? Like you just need a smaller gaming surface. So maybe you can, what we've done locally is I've built laser cut frames to delimit 3 by 3 tables on a standard 6x4 mat. So that's very easy to have your gaming area. And you just build a 2300 point list or whatever is required for the, let's say, normal tournament or normal event. And you also build a second list for ambush with some models from your main list. And then you could play 2 normal games and 2 ambush games in a day or something like that.
Guys, just throwing it out there, if we all go to Clash of Kings UK this year, Friday night, I think, is the Mantic Open night. Why don't we also bring ambush lists for 750 points or whatever?
That
and
could be an interesting
play a
thing.
little, you just play a quick little, not tournament because that's too formal, but
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's what's starting to happen is the Friday night game, I think, is going to go ambush. We wanted the Friday night game to go Vanguard, because it was going to go ahead and flow into the next day, but it didn't work out. So Mike Carter's already got, I think it's called the Calm Before the Storm. He's already putting that together for the tournament he's running in March in Indianapolis. So
That's really nice.
He's already got that in there. So you're starting to see him come. And I think you will see him come. And I think you will have some problems with some overpowered stuff. But again, I play for fun. But I love your idea of repointing them if you do that. So, but yeah, that would be a good idea. And you brought up before about, borrowing armies or paying to run an army or so. An interesting concept. If we go, there might be some armies there we could use too, if it doesn't fit. Because every time I've gone to Lone Wolf, I've borrowed an army. I have never brought an army to Lone Wolf. So I've always played somebody else's, which is always fun for me. But I don't plan on winning anyways. But yeah, so it'd be fun. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Mantic will have something a little more structured, or just have open tables that we can play on. So
yeah,
That would be really nice.
And I think, Mark, if you need an army, let's just have a word with Steve Hildrew, because I think that's something he can definitely help you out with.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think I'm going to poke Steve on his Rift Forge orcs because I'm working on trying to build an army of those over here myself. So I'll get a little practice with them, and maybe I can score that or something like that, so I don't have to carry it in the suitcase on the trip. So, but we'll
Fantastic.
see. There's still some time, but I don't mind. I'm there for fun.
That's such a good idea. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I've got a Rift Forge Orcs army, and I think it's a really fun mix of things. You've got your flying elements, you've obviously got your scary orcs, you've got the shrine, which is super cool. I think it's a really cool army. Yeah. And I'm not a very good player, but I suspect it probably could be a strong army. Says me. I mean, all the stats say otherwise, but says me, the extremely mediocre player. Cool. Super. So we all love Ambush. We're just talking about the idea of playing Ambush on the Friday night. I'm so excited about that now. It'll just be so cool. Cool. So, let's just wrap up the show then. Thanks so much, guys, for joining us. Thanks to Mantic Games for making such fantastic games, great models. Our podcast is obviously 100% unofficial. Please tell people about the podcast if you enjoy it. Please give us a 5-star review. Something about the algorithm. If you write a review, that's good, as I understand it. Guys, thank you so much. I've had so much fun tonight. It's
a good one.
Yeah, it's been a great chat about toy soldiers as always.
Yeah, now I want to paint and I want to play games. So yeah, let's do that soon.
I'm gonna paint right after this. I'm gonna get off the call and I'm gonna go take a look right now. So I am jazzed up, and thank you so much for having me, guys. It was a while to get it going, but thrilled to be on. Thank you so much.
It was an absolute pleasure. It really was, Mark. Thank you so much for joining us.